We're trying to bring this city council meeting to order.
Roll call for the city council meeting. Roll call for the city council meeting of Wednesday, June 15th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon. Please stand for a moment of silent meditation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
And Ed, you're going to mention somebody, and Mel, you want to mention somebody at this moment.
Normally we mention some folks who passed away. I'd like to ask prayers for Ron Surtz, longtime athletic supporter in our city, both at Prep and at the commission down at UPMC. He's fighting a little bit of a medical problem right now. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you who know him, and pray for him, please.
I would like to ask our community to say prayers for the family of Mr. Tom Robinson, who lost his wife, Liz, just recently. And Mr. Robinson was a gym teacher and coach at Academy High, and he's well known throughout the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Let's have a moment of silence. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today, first of all, thankful that you have gathered us and allowed us to assemble in these chambers today. We ask that you help us make good and prudent decisions on the behalf of the city. We thank you for all the citizens that have come forth today with an interest in how and why the city runs the way it runs. And so we just ask a blessing over them also. And we just ask this in your name. Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes from the June 1st, 2022 City Council meeting and bills for payment on June 17th, 24th, and July 1st, 2022. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen.
Brings us to repository sales, correct?
Yes. Is there anyone here to speak on a repository sale? Okay, you need to step up here, give me your photo ID, and I'll take a copy of it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter De Vera. I'm from California, and I'm looking to purchase 10 vacant residential lots, and I drove around the area, and I feel that it has a lot of opportunity to build some single-family homes, mainly build some affordable housing for individuals. And I'm looking to create this within the next 2 to 5 years, and I realize I first have to secure the deal and, of course, hire some geologists and some engineers to check if there's any contamination on the soil.
Could you tell us a little bit about your maintenance plan? We had a concern that it wasn't fully fleshed out because you said there'll be time between when you purchase this and then when you would put it into, develop it. So could you give us a little bit more specifics about that?
Yes, just like with my property I own in California, I always hire people who I could rely on, and I always check on their work. And I've located a gentleman here in Erie, Pennsylvania, who could do the work, and he gave me a quote, and I feel he could do the job very well.
Okay, and you've done this in California also? Do you have experience in?
Yes, I do. I'm a licensed realtor for the last 18 years, and I've owned property and sold properties in the last 20 years of my life. And I've helped so many buyers and sellers with their properties as well. So I have quite a bit of experience over the years.
Thank you for appearing. Does anybody on council have questions?
Yes, I have one. Are you aware of the frontal footage requirement for building a home?
Can you repeat that, please?
Frontal footage?
Yeah, that was given in the description.
I haven't seen the 10 that you have purchased, but I don't know if they are wide enough to put a house on.
Yeah, I've noticed it. I've driven by the properties, and they range anywhere from 20 to 35 square feet in width, and as deep as 160 feet deep.
You might want to check upstairs on that one.
Oh, okay.
There's one more. You had a chance to drive by them, you said?
I sure did.
Okay. There's one on East 4th Street, really well maintained by the neighbors.
Is that near the baseball arena or the park?
The 1000 block, so it's further out from the baseball stadium.
Oh.
So the general condition, have you been seeing these are neglected, or have you been seeing that some of them are already being maintained by the neighbors?
Yes, I've seen some that were maintained by individuals, probably the house next door to it. They just want to maintain it just to make it look nice. I've seen some areas where they have tall grass that needs some work. Yeah, they range from nice to need some work.
Yeah. In the email we got for this, did anyone have any follow-up? Because they were reaching out to the one on East 4th. Has anyone heard anywhere where that went? I sent some emails back, but I didn't hear anything. You are here. All right.
Okay, any other questions for this gentleman? Okay, and then I just want to say, per Mr. Brzezinski's question, while you're in town, it would be good to make sure that you know all that, get all that information while you're here about frontage and everything, okay?
Oh, okay, with the planning department? Or
The zoning.
is that with the?
Code
planning-
enforcement.
Oh, code enforcement, okay. Okay.
Thank you. Jasmine, you had a question too?
I was just going to ask, if you're not able to develop the property, what do you plan to do with it? Because you said in 3 to 5 years you hope to be able to either put single houses or housing of some sort. We've had in the past where individuals receive property from the repository sale and then they turn around and they try to sell it back to the city for us to take care of it after they make their portfolios look good. So we just want to make sure that we're not going to be allowing you to come back and say in 2 to 3 years, okay, I'm not able to develop the property, I'm not able to do anything with it, you can buy it from me.
Yeah, if there was a problem with the soil, for example,
Okay.
I would probably just resell it. I wouldn't just let it sit there for a
Okay.
long period of time. I'm more than responsible about that matter.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
Thanks for speaking.
thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We don't take questions from the floor about. Okay, thanks for alerting us. Maybe just pushing the microphone down a little bit farther. The next speakers, could you make sure you speak right into the microphone? Thank you.
You can lower your masks while you speak.
Hello, my name's Steven Zocchi.
You could lower your mask while you speak.
My name's Steven Zocchi. I live at 1029 East 4th Street. And in like 2008, we were calling the city because our dogs were getting attacked by skunks and possums and groundhogs for a blatant property that was there. And they wouldn't do nothing for it, so my wife and I bought a dumpster and we had the yard cleaned up and we took care of everything there. and we found out who owned the property. It was David Abrams from Cleveland, Ohio, and I contacted him and paid him $350 for the property. He had the papers notarized for us. The Erie Courthouse turned it down because there was a couple blank spots that they didn't like. So we sent the papers back to him. He went and had it notarized for us a second time, and the stamp was expired from the notary in Cleveland. And when we tried to contact him again, he wasn't there, so we sent him certified mail. They weren't there. So for 5 years, we paid the taxes on the property. Unfortunately, I lost my job and I couldn't afford the taxes, so I went to the Erie Courthouse to make arrangements on payments, and they said, it's not your name, you can't make arrangements, and the city took it. And I've been maintaining it since 2008. It's our yard, and it's all fenced in. I know that we've been taking care of it since 2008, and I paid the taxes for at least 5 years before I lost my job, and the city took it, so.
There used to be traffic that would park on East 4th Street and use that.
Could you identify yourself also, please?
I'm sorry, Dawn Zaki. We live at 1029, right next door to the property at 1025 East 4th. There was a lot of traffic through that empty lot there was trees on it, there were grass over my head, garbage. The home that was there burned down, and whoever tore it down just left it in the basement. So there's actually parts of the home coming up through the ground that we pull out as it works itself up. But we did put a fence up to stop the traffic because I had someone trying to break into my home through the dining room window in that lot. We have a vegetable garden, we have flower garden. It's our yard. We maintain it as our home.
Ms. Zaki, did you tell me that you could not place a bid on the property?
When I went to the tax bureau, I had a check for to make a bid, and they said there's already a bid in. They can only accept the one bid for the property. And I said, then why have a bid? She said, you just have to go to the city council meeting and plead your case as to why it shouldn't be sold, or how you're going to maintain it and what you have done with it. My kids played on it, my grandkids are playing on it. It's a family. I was born in the house behind it, but we don't want it to go anywhere, especially if it's not going to be developed and another family live on it. He doesn't know, because in that house that's there, we take care of it the best we can. We haven't had it dug up, but he's going to have a problem.
Well, we appreciate you coming here. I don't think this is something we can resolve from the dais today. Does anybody else have any questions for the?
Is there any way we can put a bid on it, even though somebody else has one, seeing how we've been paying for it?
We aren't lawyers, and we aren't in charge of what happens at the county, so we aren't going to give you a legal opinion right now about
Who would be
what
able to
happened,
tell
what
us?
transpired here, but we appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Ed, is there anything else I should or shouldn't say about this?
No, I think that's accurate. I mean, there's an issue that is a county issue that we don't have all the facts. We would need to gather that before we could determine if there's anything that the city can do. And we could certainly do that. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm the solicitor for the city, and so it's the attorney. So I hear what you're saying, and I certainly will look into the county end of it.
Okay,
Madam President, is there any way we can hold that sale until it's cleared up? I mean, by the time we find out what's going on, the other people can own it. How long when you start cleaning it out?
I purchased the house I closed on it June 27th, 2003.
3?
And I've been taking care of it since.
3 from 22. You have what they call adverse possession. I'm a real estate broker too, retired. It means you actively use that property for the last 21 years.
Yes.
So I think if you even get a public offender, you might be able to get the property that way. Again,
Well, we aren't
I'm not an
voting on
attorney.
it tonight anyhow, though, so
It's a real thing.
Yeah, before council does anything, we would have additional information to present to you.
Madam President, I'd like to move, if it's the right move, is to hold any action on this particular property until we get further information from our solicitor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Ed, do we need to vote on that, or because we don't have anything before us right now, correct? So can't it just be a general agreement that we aren't going to do anything until we get all the facts?
It could be, but you do have something before you. You have a motion and a second, so
Okay.
I would go ahead and vote.
Okay. Everybody know what they're voting on?
Yes.
No action until we get the,
Just this one
Yeah.
property, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this may come down next week for a vote.
but we don't meet
Do
next
we-
week.
Or next meeting for a vote, so we could just do it then, like,
But I'd like to separate this out so that the rest of this stuff can move on for this guy from California so that he could keep moving forward. I don't need to delay him 2 weeks on the rest of his projects.
Well, again, we aren't voting on any of it tonight, but we're voting to, not move forward on this one till we have the facts.
Okay.
okay, we have a motion by Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mr. Brzezinski, that we will not move forward voting on the property of 1025 East Fourth until further information is received.
That's a
Mr.
great
Br-
recap, thank you.
Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen.
President, for the audience, our silence when she calls our name, if we say nothing, it's a yes. If we disagree, then we have to verbally say no.
Okay. Thank you.
And I did have one other question. Was it easier to hear this time? Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I appreciate that.
Thank you. You guys have a good evening.
Okay, are there any more repository sale comments? Any more repository sale? Okay. We're going on to public comments, I believe.
Folks, we need you to
Hey,
please speak clearly, your name and address for the record. Thank
And
you.
I would also say, I know everybody has 5 minutes, but if you look at this packed chamber, if you could do it succinctly, I think that would be really helpful.
Hello, my name is Art Leopold, 5341 Apple Grove Lane, Erie, PA. City Council, Renee, Erie Administration, council members, fellow citizens.
Can you lower your mask a little bit so we can hear you clearly, Art? Thank you.
Sure. As you know, my advocacy has been for more diversity in the Erie Police Department, creating a civilian police review board, updating use of force policies, providing more non-police response options to crisis calls. I believe any and all of these initiatives would bring justice and build more trust among city residents. I am fortunate to have some wise friends and often talk with them about current issues. Do not take passion for a cause or a point of view as a lack of caring or concern. The current issue before council is complex. Some Erie neighborhoods and their residents are frustrated by experiencing turmoil and crisis at their door, and their concerns are valid. Using an analogy of a physician treating a disease, I want all of you to put yourself in the position of a doctor looking to treat a disease. For like a disease, there is violence in our community. There is a great need for immediate intervention, also the necessity to treat the base condition as it continues to foster. The unrest is possibly a result of decades of disinvestment and neglect, exacerbated by the pandemic. With limited resources, there must be a balance between tackling the symptoms and mitigating the root cause of what is plaguing the community. It will take all of us to be involved working to heal our community. Here are some suggestions for solutions that have proven to reduce crime. Investing in programs for families and kids by helping community building centers and organizations that provide services, job preparation, opportunities for neighborhood growth. Helping people who are experiencing economic uncertainty and homelessness by bolstering targeted programs. Cleaning up vacant lots on average decreases gun violence by 29%. And increased street lighting helps reduce nighttime crime and violence up to 36%. Increased funding for health care and mental health options helps reduce programs and helps reduce problems. That also includes substance abuse. A balance is needed to achieve between funding to alleviate the roots of violence and providing a bolstered police response to current crisis. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gary Horton, 2046 East 19th Street. I've come before council this evening to support policing in the city of Erie. I'm not against police. I support the police. And I recognize the enormity of the task that they have today. I think to vote against this resolution to hire new police is the wrong message at the wrong time, and it goes in the wrong direction. Almost as wrong as a message that says all kids are bad. Almost as wrong as putting this much money into police and this much money into youth. I believe we can have them both. We're in a historical moment with these hirings, second only to the forced legal hiring in the 1970s of 10 black police officers, including the first black female police officer, Jackie Wokich, who went on to become first in that class and to end her career as deputy police chief. And while I encourage you to support that, I also commend Lieutenant Lennox and the city and his team and the city administration for recognizing the moment that we're in and addressing it. I don't think there's any more important thing you could do today than to diversify the police department, and you have an opportunity to do that. And while I support that, I'm also here to ask you or to encourage you to put more money into youth, to ask the city administration to find more money to put into youth, and to try a new direction. You put $500,000 in and challenge the Erie Community Foundation to match it. Challenge Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority to match it. There's no greater message after policing and safety that we can give to young people that we don't believe they're all bad, and to families that we have programs that support youth. I also would stand to support item number 4 under new business, your community development funding. And while I support that, I challenge the city to come into compliance with Article 127. I think you need to do that yesterday and use it for the basis to be intentional and act affirmatively on behalf of Erie's poor, black and brown, and new American communities who undoubtedly have been hurt by the non-compliance of Article 127. I look forward to City Council as I support the resolution to update the Bayfront Comprehensive Plan. That I can stand here where you adopt the Eastside Grassroots Coalition Comprehensive Plan. We've been working since 2016 or 17 to address our neighborhood too. There are other neighborhoods than just the downtown and the waterfront, the East and West Bayfront and that. So I would encourage you to expedite that and to give the people in our neighborhood hope. I also would encourage you to adopt Resolution 7 and 8 with the goal being that the prospective buyers be targeted, black and brown and poor and new American families, to become homeowners or to fix up the homes that they have in the neighborhood, not just put money out there for people who have money or have the ability to buy in the city but not live in the city. And that you address the needs of Erie's long-time pervasive poverty through being intentional. I think utilizing Article 127 should motivate us in that we have money. We have ARP money. We have new money. Let's use it on behalf of the people. I do support Resolution 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Good evening. My name is Howard Bibbs. I reside at 2931 Chestnut Street, Erie, PA. I am here to continue where I left off at the last time I was here. In terms of the meters, the water meters are being installed in homes, but they're not turned on. And I also want to talk about the rates. Rates are set by either of two methods, meter rates or flat rates. In some cases, a mix or both rates can be used in different parts of the service area. Meter rates are based on the use of a meter to measure water consumed. Flat rates are typically used where systems do not have meters and are based on the total usage divided by the number of users. Hundreds or maybe thousands of Erie residents, by deception, have had water meters taken out of their home. These meters have been replaced by new meters that are not activated, turned on, or simply not working. And they took out working meters. They personally took a working meter out of my home, and I've been having the replacement meters not turned on since August of 2020. These meters must be turned on to stop Erie Water Works from estimating the rates too high for these residencies. Erie Water Works is presently estimating rates wrong. They use the wrong method. If you look in, you can go on the computer and you can find the Municipal Act. It's in the computer. And you can also find there's two versions. Then you can also find the codes for the Water Authority, which nobody follows. Nobody follows codes. There is one employer at Erie Water Works who tend to address themselves of having municipal powers. These municipal powers allow this individual to do business as they see fit with no repercussion or consequence. The authority or their role is not part of municipal government. An authority is not a creature, agent, or representative for the municipality. It is an independent agency of the Commonwealth. It is a public corporation engaged in the administration of civil government. It is a separate legal entity with powers to incur debt. Now, I have written a letter to the Water Authority, the board. And on my letter, if I can just quickly read the first paragraph. I am writing this letter to inform the Erie Waterworks Board about wrongful, flagrant, coercing acts committed by Erie Waterworks against me. I will attempt to keep all events in order so that you will be able to visualize and understand things as they have happened. I am going to start with the incidents in 2018 when I reported I heard water running very loud along the street curve. I went on in my letter to point out numerous of times where I have called and said that my meter is not turned on. Once again, the gentleman asked me, how do you know it's not turned on? But I didn't ask him how do he know it's not turned on, but still, he asked me that. He also wanted to know where have I worked in the past. Most of my employment been with social service. So I guess if you worked in social service, you're not supposed to be able to tell if a meter is on or if the meter is off. Now, I coordinated a program for pre-apprenticeship, all of the pre-apprenticeship. I went to a vocational school and attended another vocational school after I passed through that vocational school. There's a lot of things that are going wrong with the water department. Now, there's a thing I have here in terms of, I can never get all of it in, okay. I'll be back. But when I come back, I'm going to start with the power of authority. And that power of authority have been mismanaged. And I'm going to prove that. I'm going to prove also that in terms of how they came about with the rates, I have my invoices from 2014.
Thanks, Howard. We'll look forward. We know that you are a faithful
Yeah, you know I'm coming.
participant.
Yeah, you know I'm coming.
We'll see you next time.
I did ask, but I guess it's not available, but I would wish that council would give me time so I can go through my material and don't have to keep coming down here bothering you guys. But if I have to, I will come back. Thank you. You have my phone number or my address? Thank you. You ain't called me.
Good evening, Council President Allen and members of City Council. Thank you for the good work that you do in many different ways. My name is Father Jerry Pescaro. I live at 921 East Avenue. For the last 10 years, I've been coordinator of the East Avenue, Hess Avenue Neighborhood Watch. On a regular basis, we report information to law enforcement, code enforcement, the district attorney's office, as well as other law enforcement agencies. I'm here tonight with some members from our Neighborhood Watch who could attend. Municipalities across the country have firsthand experiences of what happens when you're soft on crime and criminals and give them the upper hand by not providing law enforcement with the tools and the resources that they need to do their job and to do it well. I'm here to support law enforcement because they support us. People want to feel safe. They want to be safe. Public safety has to be the #1 priority of any elected officials and municipal government officials, or there's no quality of life for its residents. We cannot live in an anything-goes society. Freedom has its limits. I'll say it again. Freedom has its limits. One more time. freedom has its limits. And thank God there are men and women in law enforcement careers to enforce those limits, along with protecting and defending our community from people who seek to do harm to our community and turn it into another Chicago, another San Francisco, another Seattle, another Portland, or another New York City. I, as the coordinator, and the members of our Neighborhood Watch wholeheartedly support Mayor Schember's administrative initiative to designate already received federal ARP funds to increase the number of law enforcement officers on the streets, to restore the Erie Police Department Juvenile Unit, to increase officers assigned to the Neighborhood Action Team, and also for community patrol policing. It makes sense. For the next 5 years, federal ARP money can provide funding to achieve this. I'm here tonight also to speak about the boom car problem currently plaguing Erie and other municipalities across America. A boom car is a vehicle that drives around with a blasting stereo that can be heard in the homes of residents, in schools, and in businesses. It's a deliberate disruption and a disturbance of the peace. Boom cars are a public safety hazard. They increase the chance of accidents. They distract other motorists and homeowners. They make it difficult for drivers to hear emergency vehicle sirens. Boom car offenders create feelings of aggression. They disrespect the law. They demonstrate antisocial behavior. They're belligerent towards society. They rile up others. There's drug dealers who have been known to advertise they're in the neighborhood to do business with drugs by blasting their vehicle stereo. The Department of Justice outlined a number of approaches to reduce boom car noise. Buffalo, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, they have cracked down on boom cars. You can be jailed up to 3 months in Papillon, Nebraska for a car stereo that can be heard 50 feet away. In New York City, police are authorized to impound cars with loud blasting stereos until the citation is paid in full. In 2008, Mayor Dick Moore told City Council he was determined to eradicate noise pollution in the city of Elkhart, Indiana, population 52,000, not far from Notre Dame University. They hired a noise control police officer in 2009. He issued 1,200 tickets, generating more than $273,000 in fines. First offense, $250. Second offense, $500. Third offense, $1,000. Fourth offense, $2,500, and so on. In 1 year, Elkhart, Indiana's noise control officer did more drug busts than any other Elkhart police officer, and he was looking for noise violators. There's a strong link between noise, guns, drugs, gangs, and crime. Anti-noise programs are a great way to reduce crime. Elkhart, Indiana has 3 noise control officers now who have found meth labs, marijuana, cocaine, weapons, and individuals with outstanding warrants. Elkhart, Indiana's anti-noise boom car program is a model for the nation. No taxpayer money is involved. Thank you and have a wonderful evening. I have a boom car handout I'll leave here for each of the city council members and also the mayor's administration.
Thanks, Father Jerry.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm Mike Jabkowski. Actually, I own property in the city of Erie. I do live in Harbor Creek itself, but I'm concerned, the same concerns he has, you know, the drugs on the street, the boom boxes,
Mike, and don't forget
the shootings. Huh?
Mike, don't forget to give your address. So I know you're in Harbor Creek, but everybody else gives their address, okay?
What do you want me?
Your address, give your address, okay?
In Harbor Creek?
Yeah.
Or, okay, 4004 Cooper Road.
Thank you.
I didn't know which address you wanted, but but anyhow, I have the same concern that he has, you know, the boom boxes. I mean, I was on East 38th Street last week near the country fair there, and I had my windows closed, and I had my music on in the car, but it wasn't loud or nothing. And the car next to me was so loud, I couldn't hear anything in my car, and my car was just shaking. And I'm concerned, I have a property on the Lower East Side, on off of East Avenue. And I'm concerned about the shootings over on Payne Avenue, Hess, in that area. I'm concerned about the drug activity that goes on there. I rent to an older lady over there, and she complains about, the drug activity and the shootings and stuff like that. And she's afraid to bring her grandson around because of all that stuff. And that's a big concern. And just wanted to reiterate on what the father had already talked about. This is really all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Margot Wolf. I live at 1039 West 24th Street. So I can get this down. I'm here to talk to you
You want
about
to take your mask off just so we
Thank
can
you.
hear more clearly, if you're comfortable doing that.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about the increase in the personnel in the police department and what that entails. I recognize that the ARP funding is a huge amount of money. That is a huge responsibility for you to figure out where it's going to go and what it's going to be used for. We also recognize that it's a one-time shot, one-time deal. And once it's gone, it's gone. And public safety is one of those buckets that you can put money into. And I don't think there's anyone here who is against public safety. We're all for public safety and whatever that entails. I think as Erie residents, though, I think we need to get a little bit more creative. And we can do that. There are so many different programs out there that will help our police do their job better. And one of them I'm thinking about is crisis intervention training. That's just one of them. I know our police force has been trained in certain areas, but it's not enough. There's a lot more that needs to be done. And we can look to programs like Johnstown has. They've been running their crisis intervention program for 15 years very successfully. The PCCD right now is offering funding for this type of training for entities across PA. So they recognize how important it is. I mean, we don't even have to go that far. We can go ask Dr. Paris Baker over at Gannon University, who has talked about this, and he talked about this years ago at the People's Supper. And some of you were there. I remember seeing you there. And a lot of those initiatives have stalled. But this is one of those that can continue with this funding. And we can give this money to our police department so they can be trained to help people who are in crisis, whether it is mental health crisis, whether they're dealing with domestic issues, whether they're dealing with drug issues, with whatever they're dealing with, so that they can actually help the people and not cause even more harm. And again, I'm not saying that our police force is not equipped to do this, but they can have more. They can do more. Let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, my partner was running for city council. Unsuccessfully, did not make it. But we did talk to a lot of people in the city and ask them what did they need? What did they see that in the city that needed to be there? And we went to the Mental Health Association on Peach Street and talked to the people that use the facilities there. And I'll never forget it. There's one gentleman that came up and started talking to us. And he says, you know what I'd really like? I'd like the police to stop putting me in jail just because I'm having a mental health crisis. He had a brain trauma. Sports, we're assuming. And he was dealing with a lot of issues. And every time they saw him out on the street and they talked to him, they assumed that he was on drugs. They assumed that he was violent. And he never, ever had a history of that. And they would put him in jail, and it would happen again and again. He said, I just want them to recognize who I am and recognize that's not who I am. We need these types of recognition services so that our police can actually help the people that are in crisis. Use the ARP funding for that. And I'm sure that the police officers that you have chosen are very well trained and are going to be excellent in their positions. But what happens when that ARP money is gone? Do we just let them go? And then we don't have any money for training? Please consider this. Thank you.
Thank you.
have some flyers, City Council. Good evening. My name is Barry Clark. I live at 2035 East 19th Street. I see a lot of progress going on in the city, street development, this and that, but I don't see no work on my street. Everywhere but my street. They're making Erie look like Disney World. They're bringing in a lot of tourists, but people live in Erie. My tax dollars spend like everybody else's tax dollars. My street haven't been worked on since Joyce Savacchio. I have 1,200 people that live in my district. I'm 2nd Ward, 7th District Ward Chair. I will knock on every door in my district, 1,200 people, and they're going to vote. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Spencer Myers. I'm 633 East 7th Street. I'll just make it quick. If $40 million a year for the police doesn't get the job done, then $14 million more isn't going to help. At what point do we admit that? If the mayor and city council and local law enforcement believe that a juvenile crime unit would truly be beneficial, then they need to find a way to reallocate the ample $40 million budget that they already have in order to make that happen. They need to work with the money they already have. Please stop just putting the money that way. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paul Gamble, 2303 Holland Street. Let me preface my remarks by just saying I'm not taking a lot of time. I've been living at 23rd and Holland since October of '93. Been involved in my neighborhood watch group. I'm an adjunct instructor again in Ann Mercyhurst in criminal justice. I'm here to support the proposal to hire new police officers. Getting a little emotional, and you'll know why in a minute. 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even longer, 20-year-old young man was murdered on my front yard. He was visiting his aunt next door, young man who I knew all his life. I could see his beautiful smile now, and he was a wonderful artist. He is no longer with us. About several years ago, my brother-in-law, my wife's only brother, was murdered down on 5th and Wayne. The individual who murdered him went to court. He is now serving a life without parole. Southeast Erie, my 13-year-old relative was gunned down and murdered, chased down, shot in the back of his head, traveling with his 17-year-old cousin who was able to get away, but he was only 13 years old. Let me repeat that, 13 years old. So I support the proposal to hire these new officers. These officers will save lives. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Hello, my name is Sean Hart, 4032 Sunset Boulevard, and I'm here today to talk about the police. So our city has a lot of issues. Most pressing at the moment, I'm sure, and certainly on most people's minds, is the inflation that continues to occur, no end in sight, especially with food and gas prices. They just keep going up, and it is absolutely killing the families of our city. There's one problem we most certainly do not have, though, and that's an underfunded police department. At over 40% of the city's total expenditure, we have one of the best funded, and one could say overfunded, police departments in the entire nation. But our current administration seems to have decided that this is not enough. Now, when they came into power, we were promised an intelligent approach to our city's budget. When the ARP funding was first announced and it was passed through Congress, administration officials were on TV, they were in the newspapers, and they were saying, this is great, this is a one-time injection that we're going to use to make these long-term, singular investments that are going to defray costs in the future. That is not what is happening. That seems to have gone completely out the window with the hiring of these new officers. So after only 2 years or so, I'm not sure what the exact number is, this funding is going to dry up. And then we, as the taxpayers, are going to be on the hook for that spending. I'm asking council to take the side of taxpayers and vote no on this. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. John Villa, 556 East 14th Street, Snoop's Neighborhood Watch. I'm fully supportive of the police hirings. I can tell you right now, my grandchildren are the 7th generation in our house. We've lived there. We're going to stay there. We need more police protection. There is not enough officers out there to cover what is going on right now in the streets. Have you called the non-emergency number, reported something, and have an officer show up 2 or 3 hours later because there was 2 cars only on a street that night and he was on the west side? That happens, folks. Okay? It happens every day, all day. We have officers that are working a shift and coming back working another shift because we don't have enough officers on the street. These guys are getting burnt out. They're working their butts off. And you just can't keep running them like this at the numbers we're at. And I can tell you right now that this group that hopefully will get hired is the most diverse group that will ever be put on the force in the city of Erie. And I can tell you right now that I've worked at the police academy, and I personally at one point or another have trained every one of these officers. I think you are getting a good class of officers. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Good evening. Oh, wow. This is different. So, I don't want to be, my name is Tawan Taylor. You call me Mr. T.
Yeah, name and address.
I stay at 843 East 6th Street.
What's your name?
Tawan Taylor. You
Okay.
call me Mr. T.
Thank you, Mr. T.
I had a speech. The first guy came up and he said a lot of different things. And first off, thank you for the job y'all do. It's amazing. The pressure y'all got to be under is crazy. And then I started to see the divide. And just because we have a difference of opinion does not mean we should be divided. We had the whole, I wish we had this many people show up when they say we need money for youth programming. I wish it was anywhere close to this many people. I am shocked. And so am I against the police hiring? He said it's the most diverse group we'll ever have. Wow. No, I'm not against the police. I love the police. Love them. Need them. Every day. Trying to work on a program to have a junior police force so we can actually get younger people involved in the police, minorities involved in the police. Not against the police. What I am against right now is a discrepancy in how we doing our future. How are we saying 14 million to police 1 million? I got my mentor, who I love and respect, asking just for 500,000. He has to ask for 500,000. But we can give 14 million to, what do you say? One of the best police forces in the nation. When we gonna start taking accountability? When we gonna start saying, I don't believe in bad kids. There's no such thing as a bad kid. There's kids who make bad choices, and you know why they make bad choices in a lot of situations? Because they don't have options. When are we going to give them options? When are we going to stand behind our youth and say, y'all come first? We were about to have the most protected, beautiful, non-youth funded city ever. Ever. We're the only people that don't see the youth as our future. And I'm not talking about just elementary school. We got to go get the ones we messed up on. We got to not try them as adults and try and teach them. When I was 14, 13, 15, I'm not the same person. I made a lot of mistakes. If you would have locked me up, I would have never been able to grow. I'd had mentors who taught me how to be different. They had a different program. They had different things for us. That's what we need to focus on. The sad part about this whole thing to me too is we got some qualified people who can have brilliant careers as police officers. Not doubting that. But our youth should come first. This to me, when any time that I see any type of argument on why youth should go this way and law enforcement should go this way all the time, I don't care what city, what state, what country, that tells me the pipeline to prison does exist. It just exists, okay? We're not putting them in, we're not getting them help. We're not getting our kids help. We don't have money all over for different careers. We're not influencing them. They don't feel empowered. Now we're telling them, mess up, I wish you would. I got more backup. Mess up, I wish you would. Not, come here, let me teach you how to be better. Now I'm gonna tell you this, some of the police officers have taught me how to be better. Again, not against the police. I'm against one side only being for one side. I clap for every single person who spoke because every single person's opinion matters, not because it matches mine. That's all I got.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Calavoda, and I reside at 615 Ohio Street in the city of Erie. I'm here today to urge you to vote no against the proposed hiring of 9 additional officers for the city police department. I have been employed as a school psychologist by the Erie School District for the last 8 years. After working with and advocating for children and families in our community, I can tell you that bulking up an already very well-funded police department cannot and will not address the needs of our community in any meaningful way. I would like to share some information from a study published in Journal of the American Medical Association Pediatrics in September 2021, titled Police Exposures and the Health and Well-Being of Black Youth in the U.S., a systematic review. Researchers conducted a systematic review of 29 studies spanning from 1980 to 2020 that included 19,954 participants, describing the association between police exposure and health outcomes for Black youth 26 years and younger. Review of the research shows that exposure to police, even in instances in which officers are providing assistance, may be detrimental to the health and well-being of Black youth. It can be associated with poor mental health, substance use, risky sexual behaviors, impaired safety, hopelessness, anxiety, sadness, anger, fear for one's life, alienation, and adultification. This is more than a social, political, or safety issue. It's a public health issue. By voting for an increase in police officers, you're sending a clear message to the youth in our community that their physical health, mental health, and well-being are not actually a priority. A review of 40 years of research shows that police exposure leads to poorer health outcomes for our youth. Adding additional police officers is a shallow, reactive attempt at addressing violence within our community. It's time to address the root causes and failures in our current systems. Mayor Schember and members of City Council, You have been elected by our community and have the ability to enact systems-level change that can positively or negatively impact the city and its residents for years and years to come. Please do not take that responsibility lightly. Once again, I urge you to vote no against the proposed hiring of 9 additional officers. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hi, my name is Samantha Smith. I reside at 1912 West 33rd Street. I am here to talk about policing, and I urge you to vote no to more police officers. People are worried about their next meal, how they're going to get to work with gas prices surging, how they're going to pay their rent, growing healthcare bills, and even if their kids are going to make it home safe from school. These are real situations for people escalated by COVID. ARP funding is supposed to ease the pain of trying to survive during a pandemic. We can prevent crimes before our next shooting. We know what keeps us safe: fair wages, clean and safe schools, fair and affordable housing, youth centers, and affordable health care. When we address these problems head on with proven solutions, like the social supports, instead of militarized police, crime will also decrease. What does Erie have to lose? Policing makes up almost 40% of our budget right now. Could you imagine if we put that much funding behind our Department of Economics and Community Development, which is currently below 1.5% of the budget? We can afford to create a more sustainable future for ourselves and our youth. Fair wages, clean and safe houses, fair and affordable healthcare, youth centers, and more could be solved if we choose to prioritize our community over feeding the school-to-prison pipeline. We can create a safer, more inclusive, and affordable Erie for everyone. I'm calling on Erie City Council to vote no on more police officers and fund our communities. Thank you.
My name is Catherine White, and I reside at 2722 East Avenue. I'm proud to say that address because I feel like a whole lot of people are talking about us without really knowing us. Currently, I serve 2 congregations. One is entirely African American except me, and the other is a congregation made of almost entirely of people that are refugees from Southeast Asia. And I am aware that someone could come through the door when they see the Asian names on the kiosk as they drive down Parade. We could be a target. I know that. I'm also smart enough to know that it's not likely that this increase in funding is going to protect our congregation. I saw firsthand the violence that was going on from 2009 to 2011 during Mayor Sinnott's administration. And the response of the police was appalling, and I'm not going to get into that. But I began to lose faith in thinking that that people can protect us from ourselves, our worst selves. That what we need is a change of heart and a change of intent. I grieve for Mr. Gamble, who lost those family members, but I want to know how an increase in police would have saved any one of those individuals. I'm a realist. So I'm here, in a moral capacity, asking, what should I do? What should we do? What would Jesus do? 42% of our budget. What does that say about where we've placed our treasure, where our heart is? I bought this shirt as a joke at the Erie Art Museum. It says, "Give up the ship." I haven't left Erie. I haven't given up. And I love people who haven't given up. But I'm also speaking here as the mother of 10 resilient children and their husbands and my 23 grandchildren. And would I want them to live in a police state? To say freedom has its limits, okay. So how do you protect that freedom? With more guns? How were police officers able to stop the crisis in Uvalde? These are real issues. We've got to get out of the fantasy of thinking that more guns will protect this city, more police officers will protect this city. Well, I guess if they walk around intimidating us, maybe we'll all stay inside and behave. But is that the way we want to live? I have faith in you to make the right decision. I have faith in you to look at these numbers and say, is there a different way to do this? Anybody knows I support diversity and inclusion and equity. It's a platform I stand on. But where is the independent citizen review board? Where are the citizens that you've called on to help us make this decision as to how we allocate funds and where that stuff gets poured in? So the money we're spending might be important, but it's how you spend it that equips not only those officers well, but with the mental health support, with the counseling, with the nursing, with all the stuff that schools need and a community needs to be well. Anyway, thank you for your deliberation. I don't envy your position, but I'm hoping you'll do and choose the right thing tonight. Thank you.
My name is Aliana McQuarrie. I would like to refrain from saying my address because I am a minor, if that is okay. I have just a small story before I begin with the rest of what I'm going to say. As a 6-year-old freshly moving into Pennsylvania, I had a little brother, and as a 6-year-old, I had to become a parent because there was nobody here to help me. All of our money is going towards the police department, but when we called, nobody came for us. So I would like to know how spending more than 42% of our budget is going to help us as a community when we can be putting it into things like psychological help for parents who can't deal with their own kids, and help for kids who have to raise parents, because that is a thing. And dealing with parents who are abusive and destructive and put their kids in harm's way on purpose. So with that being said, having more police officers isn't going to help us. And also building a playground is not going to help us. The people that are committing crimes are teenagers and people who are very well able to make their own decisions in life. Having a playground is not going to help us. I'm not going to play at a playground. And that's just going to make more of a wide open space for it to be shot. Having metal detectors in schools isn't saving anybody. We're all lined up outside and we're all easy and open targets. Having different things such as a mini mall, maybe a plaza, somewhere in the city accessible. Our closest mall is in Mill Creek. That's not in the city of Erie. They have their own police department. They have their own things to worry about. And again, our police department is not helping out there. Having nothing in Erie is what's stopping us as children and as teenagers from moving on and becoming better. We have barely any youth programs that help kids over the age of 12. We have nowhere to go. The few small places that we have open are not in the city of Erie. We are all crowding into 3 different small places, which make us all easy targets. Our money isn't going towards helping us, it's going toward the big companies that are making the most money and the police officers who aren't helping us. And I also want to mention the fact that as a 6-year-old with a 2-year-old little brother, I was crying for help and sleeping outside and barely eating. And I had nothing to do besides go outside and get in trouble. Even in 4th grade, just walking home after getting off my school bus, I was harassed by police officers because we looked like we were doing something suspicious in 4th grade. Having more police officers isn't helping anyone. It's just causing fear. And when nobody is coming to help you, then what's the point of hiring more people? Especially when I know my family can definitely use the money to get groceries and pay our bills and have a stable home and somewhere to live and breathe and clothes on our back. And there's multiple programs that can be set up here to help students and help parents and help families, especially families that come from parents that don't speak English as a first language, such as my mother, especially from families that need help when it comes to reading and writing and learning. Our school buildings, I have a textbook from 1985. We need better schooling. A lot has changed from 1985. That school book is older than my mom. I'm not learning anything except for the repetitive history that we've all went over since the 3rd grade, because there's nothing new to learn. We need better supplies in our school, protection in our school. I go to Collegiate Academy, and until last year, we just got cameras. Anybody could enter our building. It's not safe, but with the metal detectors and adding more police officers, not only do I, as a teenager, but pretty much any other teenager feels as though they are the threats. Thank you.
Hello, how's everybody doing? My name is Jay Gamble. I reside at 942 Brown Avenue. I'm a local business owner here, and I do own property here. The reason why I'm here today, I've noticed a lot of the city contracts have been given to a small pool of businesses. I'm just wondering how much of the city's budget is supposed to be allocated to small and minority businesses. And also, as a parent of a young son, I went to go pick up my son about 2 weeks ago from school at Grover Cleveland. And I do notice we're still in a pandemic, and a large amount of people are still no longer wearing masks. I'm just wondering, the condition that I've seen the school in is not in a good condition. And I spoke with other parents in the community as well, and I've heard the same things about other schools. I've heard about ACs not working at these schools. Today I've been listening. I did have a little speech wrote, but I've been listening to a little bit of everybody, and I think it boils down to the youth and the teenagers, because that's the future. And what I'm seeing now is, if they're not in a comfortable environment at school, how are they going to be comfortable later on in life? Because that's where it starts at. I did read that the Erie School District got $70 million in budgeted funds. So I'm just confused on why the schools are not, there's no pressure being applied to them as far as the cleanliness and things that are supposed to be working. And I did read in the article that it was a record-breaking amount that they received. So that was one of my questions as well. And also, I feel like as far as the teenagers, we need to give them more opportunities. I've moved up here from North Carolina, and that's where I originally started my business down there. There's a lot more resources for minority businesses down there. I looked on the website up here. There's no city contracts for local businesses to get into. I bidded on a project with the Erie Redevelopment Authority. I'm the only person who bidded on this project, and they told me I came in too high. So what's the budget on this project then? So are we just seeing what we can line our pockets with? That's my way of thinking. But I know when I was in North Carolina, we have websites to where we can go on, and after a year, if every business gets an opportunity to bid on these contracts. I don't see that. We need growth here, and I'm not seeing growth. We don't have any identity here in Erie. I love this city. This is where I was born at, and this is where I was raised, and that's the main reason why I came back to build my company here. And we're already doing very well in numbers as far as monthly income. So I want to continue to grow, but I need the city to grow with us, and we need to put in better structure in finding our identity, because this is turning into a tourist town. Local businesses need to grow here. If the tourists and most of the people that's own these hotels, doing the bayfront, they don't live in the city of Erie. They're just buying properties, they're renting them out, and they're living in a whole different city, living good. But that's all I had. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tammy Johnson. I too listened to what the young folks were saying today, and some of the older ones like me. I live in 9982 Holly Drive, Lake City, PA, but I grew up here in Erie. I am a proud graduate. I am a centaur and always will be. I grew up in public housing, but I disagree with the fact that the police do nothing. When I was listening to what was going on, I understand that this was supposed to be approved. We had 21 officers approved back in December. But why, when we get to the black and brown and the women, are all of a sudden we having questions as to whether we're going to hire? I just don't understand that in itself. So I'm here speaking to that probably more than anything. We need these particular police officers on the force. As a child, I grew up, and if there was a brown person or a black person on there, it was a male. We need brown females. We need white females. We need white males. We need white females. We need the whole gamut to be there and to be represented. So I stand here voting for the hiring of the police officers. The other thing that I would like to, some of you might not have read the ARP, so I'm gonna let you know that there are a whole list under number 4 that Mr. Horton talked about that speak to youth activities and speak to working with the youth. And those of us who have been doing it 30 maybe years, I'm not really giving my age, but 30 maybe years, we understand the problems that were there before. But there are some guidelines here. And for those that are worried about the bear market and the this and that and the other, I'm sorry, we've been through bulls and bears and whatever else, cows, chickens, horses, I don't know. We've been through them. But our children need to see people who look like them come to the house. And when we're talking about who is involved, social service programming is involved in this. This is not just policing. This is community policing, which is a whole different effort. So it's partially, if you look at it really well, it's partially part of what the Obama pillars were talking about when he came out with his justice for the black and brown community. So while we're talking about all this stuff and where the money comes from, this and the other, don't forget there's a lot of us who are older now that are going to be retiring, so we will be absorbing that through attrition. And I say we because even though I live out in Lake City, my heart will always be at 2028 Woodlawn. All right? All those people that are all up there now, I was there when it was just woods and a dirt road and nobody came down my street. And it was an ice skating rink for everybody and the kids in the neighborhood. So I'm just saying, I will live and die in Erie. I will be buried on East Lake Road with my family. This is where I will be. And what I'm saying is we need to pass the policing. We need to pass 4 through, I don't know, and you're talking about the jobs for the blacks and the browns. I think it's through about 16 or 19 or something like that. We need to pass this in regards to making our community equitable in the city of Erie.
Hello, my name is DeAntonis Michael. I live at 1023 East 9th Street, and I'm here to state that I believe that the hiring of more police officers is attempting to put a halt to a problem that has existed for a very long time, when the focus should instead be put into prevention. And as a youth in this community, I believe that I and my peers, being the future, we should invest in a restorative justice program in order to offer youth an opportunity to recover and to grow, rather than hiring more police officers to incarcerate more youth, which can be costly for the community. Thank you. That's all I'd like to say.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Bittner. I'm the Program Director of Crisis Services, so I'm here on their behalf at 2560 West 12th Street. So for anybody who's not familiar, Crisis Services are the first responders for behavioral health. So we know firsthand the need for the police officers in our community. Part of what we do in working with the police, if somebody is in need, we're often triaging what are the safety concerns that are present. When there are, if a person has a history of aggression, if they are under the influence of substances which could create some impulsivity or unpredictability of behaviors, we're calling for the police to come and present with us. So there is a need for their response in the community for crisis situations. We do a lot with priority ones, what we call priority ones. So ultimately, the police are responding on scene, and they identify that there's a behavioral health need. So they're calling us, right? So we're going to work together and really try to help that person get connected to services. But we've seen an increase. We have 31% increase from 2020 to 2021. So really the numbers are huge in the response that we're seeing there. We do also help with serving involuntary admissions or evaluations at the hospital. So really what that means is a person has been identified as being a danger to themselves, danger to others, or having an inability to care. So we serve quite a few of those each month as well, and we coordinate with the police in order to serve those. I think we're talking about the same thing here, right? We're talking about people's lives. And so there's nothing more serious and imminent when a person is threatening suicide, threatening to kill others. And so really because of their behavioral health needs, we need them to be evaluated at the hospital. So really the hiring of these police officers really will help with also improving the response time for being able to get people seen and evaluated, because really that's like a matter of life and death. There have been situations where if there is a delay in response because there's not enough police officers, it could mean somebody's life. We're already doing this work, and so what we want to be doing is how do we do it better? How do we improve the outcomes, right, of working with people who have these behavioral health needs? We've also seen a 55% increase, again, from 2020 to 2021 of the number of children that we're serving in Erie. So again, the needs are there. And so it's not so much about how do we lock people up or, that's not the policing that we're talking about. We're talking about how do we really help people to get connected, to have officers who are trained, familiar with the resources in our community. How do we get them people connected to those services that are going to be most helpful to them? That's really going to reduce the risk of people representing to the hospital, or that risk, that's not being addressed. And so really that's what brings me here today to really advocate in support of the ARP funds for the hiring of the additional 9 officers. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Duryea Page. I live at 1031 East 9th Street. Erie, PA 16503. How should I start this? I don't want to speak on defunding the police, but I do want to speak on funding the youth. I'm here on behalf of the youth. I'm here on behalf of myself. I got a nonprofit, and I'm an entrepreneur myself. And I have great people around me, like Ms. Molly and Mr. T, and they speak for the community, and they speak for the youth. So I just want to bring forth a problem that's been going on in Erie for 30 years. This is not like a new issue with the team don't get the funding. I've been in Erie for like 11, 12 years. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. So as you all know, that's like one of the worst cities in the world. So I feel like Erie is on that way to be there, next, right up, because of the lack of initiative in the community that Detroit didn't do for us. I was able to get out of Detroit and be able to travel the world and experience different situations, start companies, lose money, go to college, raise a family. And I feel like Erie doesn't have that. I feel like it's from 1 to 10, then from 10 to 19. It's a gap. It's an age gap. And it's been going on throughout the history of Erie. If you can look at the statistics and the murder rates, 1997, a 13-year-old was killed. He killed an 18-year-old. 2011, 2021, 2016, murders, but still lack of funding for youth. And I'm not just calling out, I'm not even calling out nobody, but I do want to say the community need to participate more. So we just can't be coming up here blaming you guys about what's not going on and what's not happening. We're not even taking initiative to speak for ourselves. So another thing is, I noticed that it's a lot of post-trauma and post things. There's never no preventions. So I noticed how you can go to 5 different corners in the downtown area of Erie. You will see a GCAC. You will see a ECCM. You will see a Salvation Army. You will see a Upper Room. I have not seen nothing but one YMCA that nobody's go through because it's not updated. It's not modernized. Y'all got so many different things for these grown people, but y'all don't have the help for the youth. So it's like, until we get people to volunteer in the community more, until y'all realize what the community is going through, like putting a farmer's market on State Street in the most poverty-stricken state street in the whole country was like crazy to me. I'm thinking in my head, I'm walking past, I haven't been to Erie in 2 years. I noticed that it's a farmer's market where they're selling $3 lettuce, $10 tea, $20 bread. It's like, what? Do y'all not know the community area of Erie? It's like, don't y'all know what's going on? It's like, I feel like everybody on the panel or anybody in these high places in Erie, y'all should just really walk around and take a look at Erie. Because judging from high places, it should not be all these different resource centers for adults and so many different businesses that don't have nothing to do with the youth. No water parks, only one little sprinkler system downtown is get overcrowded. We got COVID germs flying. Nobody can have fun. You got to go to Prescott. No centers, no basketball rims, no nothing. It's only parks. And if you look at the parks, it's needles, syringes, weed guts, cigarellos. There's so many different things. But like I said, that goes back to the community. We need community participation. We need more people like Molly, Mr. T, the people at Booker T, ECU. We need people like that. And great churches in our community also. We need more help from the churches. I appreciate all the churches in Erie. Y'all do a great job. But also we need help from y'all. And a few more things. Sorry if I'm a little shaky, but I just got so much to say because it's a lot that's going on. And I feel like funding the police will only make people not like the police more because they'll feel outnumbered. Anybody outnumbered will feel threatened and then react in a harsh way. And in the poverty-stricken communities that we in, this is how we react because of what we watch, what we look up to, and who we look up to. I feel like y'all need to implement that too and look up the green light. Instead of funding the police, get the green light program. Look up the green light program. It's a 24-hour surveillance where you can look at the city and it's directly to the police department. So you won't have to hire police and fund the police. You'll just be able to monitor everything that's going on and be more direct on the crimes. You'll be able to know how to pinpoint and target the market and focus on that versus hiring new people who you got to retrain, who feel intimidated, who didn't grow up in these communities, who know people in the community, but they didn't know how to grow up in the community. We need people who's of the community to participate, not people who come from different places and give their opinion and try to demonstrate their mentality, narratives, and perspectives on life. And I thank y'all.
Thank you. My name is Cole Shenley, and I live at 615 Ohio Street, Erie, PA, 16505. I am a member of Erie County United and one of the co-chairs of the Erie chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. I'm here tonight to talk about the council's vote on whether or not to hire new police officers with ARPA funds, otherwise known as COVID money, granted to them from the federal government. The city of Erie has one of the best funded police forces in the state. It lacks for nothing, and its members are some of the best paid employees in the city. There are no police that wonder where they or their family's next meal will come from, if they can pay for health care, if they can pay for a roof over their head or clothes on their back. Their jobs are generally safe given that 59% of arrests in the city are low-level, nonviolent offenses. Yet these potential new hires for the police force would be working directly in parts of Erie's community that struggle the most: the homeless, survivors of domestic violence, and our youth, particularly young black, brown, and poor white youth. These are members of our community that rely on shelters, schools, and the kindness of strangers to help them survive their day-to-day lives. I've listened as the mayor and his team have done an all-out blitz to justify these new hires. We are told that by hiring these new police officers, the force will become more diverse than ever before, and they will be able to better partner with organizations that focus on the aforementioned young people, domestic violence survivors, and homeless population. Instead of funding youth programs and strengthening our social safety net, the mayor and his team want to hyperfund the police department in order to have more officers patrolling the streets. Given that the ways in which the mayor plans on having the city pay for these officers once federal funds dry up are ambiguous at best, something about growing our population and hoping for natural attrition among our older officers, if I'm not mistaken. There's a solid chance that our taxes will rise significantly in a few years. As I speak, the Erie City School Board is being forced to raise taxes at their meeting this evening due to an inadequacy in state funding. I've been told that this tax increase will help fund support programs and jobs that help with children in need, and that increase really won't even be enough. The same youth that the mayor wants to see over-policed won't even have the proper amount of money spent on them, despite the best efforts of the school board and the educators in the district. The mayor and the members of council that support his plan for these new police hires are telling members of the community, specifically the black community, that shallow representation matters more than citizens' finances. It's apparently okay to raise taxes on black and brown people and poor whites as long as the city's police force has a few non-white faces on it. Money is tight for working class families of all backgrounds most of the time, especially in this inflation era, but you're asking taxpayers to foot this bill for the very people you want to be constantly policing them. I'm not sure about you, but not only does that come off as politically backwards, but morally wrong. Instead of putting this money into more police, set this COVID money aside for the moment and work on funding youth and community programs more than you already have. There's a speech about poverty from the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, that I meditate on when I think about the needs of too many of our citizens. The poorest deserve the best. When you hear that, I wonder if you can take in just how revolutionary it is. They do not deserve what's left over when the more prosperous have had their fill, or what can be patched together on a minimal budget as some sort of damage limitation. And they don't deserve the best because they've worked for it and everyone agrees they've earned it. They deserve it simply because their need is what it is, and because where human dignity is least obvious, it is most important to make a fuss about it. When you make your votes tonight, think hard about who desperately needs this money more. The wealthiest municipal department with the wealthiest employees, or the working class, the youth, and the unhoused. I'm urging you to vote no on adding police to the department and to work with members of the community to find better ways of investing these funds. Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
Excuse me, does he need some mental health help?
Good evening.
I have not seen anybody storm out of here like that. That was nerve-wracking.
Good evening.
We don't need to be talked to like that, okay? Hey, I have the gavel.
Okay, is that okay for me to go? Good evening, my name is Brandy Cortez, and I live at 123 Euclid Avenue. I am here, I apologize, I didn't have time to write anything up because I could have brought all the research in the world to support the addition of the Erie police officers that we're here to talk about. I could give you all the research in the world on to support them. I am coming to you most importantly as a mother of a child in the PALS program. I can tell you personally and professionally on how the Erie Police Department has been very beneficial to me as a parent, as a professional in this community, and as a representative to the Erie Latino Hispanic community, and as a product of the Erie inner city. We can talk about the poor community. I am from the poor community. I grew up a product of welfare. I was in all of the programs that everybody is talking about. I put myself through college again and earned my master's in '98. I have been working in this Erie community, dedicating my professional career to this community, to the people we're talking about. I can give you research on every city you want, but I have done the work. I have worked directly with the people. I am one of those people, okay? I was an adjunct at Gannon, and I created a curriculum on drug and alcohol and substance use disorders and mental health. I have committed 27 years of working in mental health, intellectual disabilities, and substance use disorders. I'm currently a therapist right now. I'm not going to mention the names because I'm not representing them. I'm representing the need for these police officers. I appreciate everybody's opinions that have been come before you. I am telling you, and I'm promising you, that it is us professionals that have to contact those officers every single day to help us do our job. Not a lot of the people that have spoken here have to do that every single day. I could not do my job without those police officers for 27 years. I have worked with children. I worked with adolescents. I was part of the Warren State Project where we brought people out of there. I have worked in probably every drug and alcohol and mental health program that you can imagine, including intellectual disabilities. I met Officer Tom and the PALS officers because my son needed some help and needed to be part of a program. My son is Matthias Armstrong back there. I'm super proud of him. He was a part of the first cadet program that was last year. I can tell you that when my son needed somebody to support him, Officer Lennox came to our aid on his own, and he would do that for any of the children in those programs. We can talk about youth all day long, but I haven't seen one person here that was at any of the PALS programs. When I did a Hispanic Latino working with Ella, I didn't see any of the faces here helping. And when I called Tom, it was him and his officers that showed up to represent the youth. We need these officers. We need the diversity. I personally sat in the Jefferson Society meetings, okay? I have been there to everything. They had a specialist come in and say, this ARP money needed to go to black, brown, I am one of the brown, and to female minorities. That money is supposed to go to those officers that are going to help me continue to dedicate my job, my life to this community, to help my son and the children that were just here last week, that were very diverse, saying, these PALS kids are my family. I'm going to tell you another story, how these officers that are going to be part of the PALS program and this new unit to address substance use, mental health, and domestic violence, where these stories of officers going to domestic violence calls, which, by the way, if you don't know this, is one of the #1 killers of police officers, is domestic violence calls. They put their lives on the line for that, okay? And what happened is, on several occasions, when the police arrived at these homes, the children that were in there recognized PALS officers, which helped to de-escalate the situation. This is real evidence, not from any other city, but Erie. I could give you all kinds of feedback on things that happened here with even people in your positions, but that's not then. This is now. I have never seen such a diverse group of individuals. I am super proud of every single one of you. I was here when David Gonzalez was the first Latino that sat on there. I represent on Ella, but I'm not here speaking for Ella, which is the Erie Latino Leadership Association, and I'm very much involved with the Hispanic Latino community. Okay, so I'm telling you what the actual need is. We need these officers to help us, and I would really ask you to, that is the real stuff going on in Erie, not any other city and not a few years ago. So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
All right. My name is Kira Armstrong. I live at 123 Euclid Avenue, Erie, PA, 16511. And as I wasn't planning, obviously, to come up here and talk today. I'm actually a very shy person. But I think you guys should hear my thoughts on the police officers that the whole topic is about today. So many people came up here saying they represent the youth too. I am part of that youth. I am going to my second year at Gannon. I plan on becoming a doctor, my first doctor in my family. I want to become a veterinarian. And the person who just came up here was my mother. She has been a role model for me since I was a kid. And another role model to me is Officer Lennox. He was just at a food truck place downtown one time, and he stopped my brother, which my mom mentioned, who is here today, and said, "Do you want to join a group?" And we're like, that's really random, like really random. But he's like, "No, I'm bringing kids in and I see something new and I want to change like the whole community." So we're like, sure, why not? And I'll be darned if that man changed my life and my brother's life. My brother joined the PALS program, the Police Athletic League. That program is doing so much to change our community. If you go to their Facebook page and look at their posts from a few years ago when there was a barely amount of kids joining, and if you go look at it right now, you'll see over hundreds of kids joining. And not just kids from Harbor Creek or McDowell area, it's Erie kids who live in Erie, downtown Erie, everywhere. So they are changing the way Erie is. And I believe these police officers, they need a chance to help change our youth. Everyone's like, oh, what are we going to do for this? How are we going to change this? And oh yeah, we have to bring in the youth into this. The youth is changing. You need to open your eyes. You need to go look and see the facts that from those Facebook pages, you can watch how many more kids are joining, how many more kids are changing. My brother went to the first junior police academy, the first of many more to come, and he wants to be an officer. He never had that chance before, and now guess what? He has that chance now. He's going to go to prep because he wants to have a good education. He's going to be playing sports. He wants to become an officer so he can change lives too. So, you talk about the youth is changing because of the police officers in this PALS program. So I hope you take that in consideration. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Devasia Thomas. I'm going to refrain from saying my address due to me being a minor. But you guys are trying to put money into the wrong thing. You're putting money into police officers, and I feel like that's the wrong thing to do. What you need to do is use the money to find a way to do programs and event centers and things to help the youth get off the streets. You're also, if you hire new cops, what you're doing is the crime rate isn't going to go down. They're doing that. The police are there to stop the aftermath. The crime is already committed, so there's nothing to do. The person's dead. You can't change that. Somebody gets robbed, their stuff is gone. You can't change it because they're just there to put them in jail, but not actually stop the crime from being committed over and over repeatedly again. Also, oops, sorry, my phone turned off. Also, you need to put the money into more mental health awareness. What happens is these kids go through very traumatic episodes in their lives, and what happens is it grows inside of them and it keeps pestering and pestering until they commit a violent act. And they also see that as they have no way out. You need to give these youth a way and show them that there is another way other than violence instead of inducing fear into them. That's not the way to go. Suicide is also one of the #1 leading cause of deaths. Not homicides, but suicides. Put more money into mental health awareness and show them that there is a way out. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and these crimes will surely go down. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I'm Anna Franz, 6658 Richardson Road, Fairview, Pennsylvania. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of our West Bayfront, the nonprofit organization that serves the West Bayfront neighborhoods, with the goal simply of sharing some of what we've observed and heard in the community regarding police and safety and how this relates to the Our West Bayfront Community Plan, which guides our work in the neighborhoods. We know that there's a wide diversity of opinions on this issue within the West Bayfront and even within our organization's own board of directors. And it should go without saying that truly addressing the root causes of crime requires a multi-pronged approach that goes far beyond what the EPD can do. Our mission is focused on enhancing quality of life in the West Bayfront neighborhoods. Unfortunately, over the last several years, there's been a noticeable increase in the variety of situations that are negatively impacting the quality of life and, in some cases, the safety of residents in our neighborhoods. These range from what could be considered nuisance issues, speeding, loud motorbikes, etc., to serious violent crimes that seem to be occurring with more frequency. Youth are increasingly involved in some of the most serious situations, and we've heard a lot of concern about what the summer months will bring. These issues need to be addressed, and urgently. We try to keep the 5 different neighborhood watch groups in our area connected and informed, encouraging them to report issues to the police so that there can be a response, and working on the types of projects like security camera installation and pedestrian safety improvements that are within our wheelhouse. But outside of our control is the extent to which residents feel that when crimes are reported, they're being addressed, and that there's trust between the community and officers. What we've heard from many residents is strong support for increased community policing, aligned with national best practices. Many of the residents we've heard from want to be able to interact and build relationships directly with officers in the neighborhood outside of crisis situations. I'll just go off script for a second. I came directly from Bayview Park this evening. That's why I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt and wouldn't normally dress like this in front of the council, but the park was packed. You know, there were easily 100 or 200 kids there, youth there, and I know the police want to be at situations and places like that. Unfortunately, they've been trying, we know they've been trying, but I didn't see a single police officer there for the time that I was there. People we're talking to, they want police officers out and about, mingling and building those relationships in those types of situations. So we understand that the proposal that was approved by council in December would or could result in increased community policing, and we think that's a necessary foundation that must be in place for our efforts to strengthen neighborly relationships that are called for in the our West Bayfront Community Plan to succeed. We hope that this unprecedented opportunity created by the availability of ARP funding is the start of more and better dialogue on this issue, and that the level of engagement that we're seeing today can be harnessed toward better solutions that can address the causes of these issues and not just the symptoms. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Heather Casper, and I live at 509 West 7th Street. I'm here because I also work with the Sisters of St. Joseph Neighborhood Network in a number of neighborhoods across the city. I'm here to support the ARP funding for police officers who are specially trained and tasked with crisis and juvenile response. I'm here to share, like Anna just did, some of the experiences that we've had in our neighborhoods recently, in just the last 2 months. A woman at our side door with an infant in a stroller escaping domestic abuse situation. A robbery attempt by 2 teens of a 15-year-old, armed. They attempted to steal his mini bike. Open air drug deals happening this was reported in my neighbor's front yard next door. Individuals who have overdosed are moved out to the sidewalk so first responders don't come inside to see what else is going on there. Public overdoses, sometimes the same person multiple times in the same month. Drugs stashed in public places for later use. Syringes and paraphernalia discarded everywhere. So many homeless individuals. Starting campfires in the middle of a private park. Hiding belongings on private property found by the property owner who looks for an ID in the bag but finds drug paraphernalia. So suddenly it's not just an issue of finding who owns the backpack, but suddenly we have drugs to deal with. Breaking into vacant properties or non-vacant properties, like our office building for shelter for the homeless. So we make the 911 calls responding to incidents that we witness. We encourage neighbors to call the police non-emergency number when appropriate, or 911 for a crisis. We assist in the resuscitation of an overdose victim. We've been trained in mental health first aid and administration of Narcan. We make calls to the 814 shelter to help find temporary housing. We serve hot meals every week, even to 2 on just Monday, who 15 minutes later were observed doing drugs in the private park we've created for neighborhood families by police who were initially responding to an entirely different call. So we've observed this increase of incidents for much longer than 2 months, of course, though warmer weather does often bring people outside. The number is overwhelming, with the underlying causes of mental illness, addiction, homelessness, and almost always a combination of those three. The addition of police officers won't solve these problems, and I do understand the frustration with the budget. A neighborhood gathering just 2 weeks ago, the police presence in the neighborhood was discussed, and while some wrote police off as unresponsive and doing nothing to help, so why bother, some in the same group recalled the increased presence that was very intentionally introduced during Little Italy's burn grant days and asked how we could bring that back. I haven't yet been made aware of anyone who has the answer to this system-wide problem. It isn't obvious or easy, or it would have already been solved. There probably isn't one answer, but a lot of small answers working together. So if this increased and specialized police presence is one part of the answer, and we know that right now, tonight, tomorrow, and the next day, it is absolutely the Erie Police who are going to be the first dispatch to these crisis calls, it seems essential that we take this opportunity presented to build a team of responders who are specially trained to handle these crises appropriately, and whose assigned responsibility is to connect with the correct human service providers to address the underlying causes. Thank you for this opportunity to share as you consider this very complex issue.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kathy Schaff, 2437 East 43rd Street, and I voted on the support of the police officers. Police officers are people.
Kathy, do you live in the city?
Yes.
Okay.
I live at 2437 East 43rd Street, and I've been an Erieite all my life, a hardworking person. I've had a job since I was 15 years old, and I haven't stopped. I am not wealthy by any means. My father was a police officer who retired in 1988. I grew up with our name not on the mailbox because there was retaliation back in the day, and at times people put cherry bombs and things in our mailbox at the end of the driveway, and we had our unlistable, it was listed phone number, but it was under my mother's name. We celebrated holidays around his working schedule, all our family pictures around Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter usually have his uniform on, where he worked on Car 105 and stopped in with his radio to come and visit as much as he could before he had to leave. I have been a teacher since 1981. Currently, there is a 30-something patrol person, officer, that I taught in kindergarten, so I've watched him grow up and am thankful for him. My friend of 37 years who is deceased, she has 2 officers on the city force at this time, 2 young men. We were at the EMTA function last night, and an officer came up to my husband and started chatting away with him, and my husband said that he was a former Mercyhurst hockey player in the evening, so they knew each other from back in the day. And I could probably tell you a few more instances. I have the deepest sympathy for Officer Jason's family, who was out there in the city actively checking on the welfare of people. I personally have called on the police officers on numerous occasions, and I really consider the police officers have saved some lives on my intercession when I have found half-frozen people and have had them sent to the hospitals. They are people. They are fathers, they are brothers, they are husbands, and they need help. They go out every day as first responders for the people in mental health crises, for the people who have substance abuse problems. They are the first people who see the gun violence and the shootings. They're the first people who come to the accidents, whether the person is dead or not. My father has seen eyeballs falling out of people's head. They are the first responders. They deal with post-traumatic stress disorder. They have families. Yes, they need to be trained. I definitely agree with it. But I also agree that we need officers. And as a former city council person, one of the things people talked to me about were safety. People want to feel safe in their homes. They want to feel safe in their neighborhoods. They want to feel safe when they're going grocery shopping. They want to feel safe when they're at public events. And the officers do that, especially more so now. I always look around when I'm at a public event, and I check out to see if there's an officer I can hail, and am very thankful that there is. They are the ones who come to the suicides. They are the ones who treat the people who have imbibed in alcohol too much. We do have a lot of depression. We do have a lot of issues in Erie. And I love Erie. I love it to pieces. But I do a lot of reading, and today I found on 24/7 Wall Street, and there was an article that says why Erie, Pennsylvania is more dangerous than most United States cities. And it said that Erie ranks number 698 by violent crime rate, which ranks it in the top 25% most violent United States cities. The violent crime rate in Erie ranks as number 14 of the 117 cities in Pennsylvania that are home to at least 5,000 people for which the FBI has data. There is a lot of domestic abuse going on, and the police are right there again. They are the first responders. They are the ones who need as much training as possible. As a teacher, we had an active shooting trainee during one of our in-services this year, and it really shook me up. And it's not the reason why I retired after this year, but anyways, thank you.
My name is Freda Tepper, and I live at 1738 West 23rd Street. I often come and talk about sidewalks, and you know, sidewalks does have something to do with this, because I don't know how many times I've reported the condition of West 18th Street between Cranberry and Raspberry, and the fact that you can't walk on the sidewalk on Raspberry, and that Buffalo Road, the whole parts of it are not maintained. What is the message that people in our city get when we don't care about where they have to travel? Kids walk to school on Raspberry, and they have to see what they're expected to walk through every day. I was involved, I tried to be involved with the Active Erie Plan. I wasn't given the privilege of being on the steering committee, but I was told that the Active Erie Plan didn't identify unmaintained sidewalks. They only identified where there were no sidewalks. So we spent all this time and all this money on this plan that doesn't address Raspberry, that doesn't address Buffalo Road, that doesn't address the neighborhoods with decrepit facilities. I think what we need is more good child care. people who are paid well for doing childcare, decent transportation for people to get to work at the times they need to get to work, and we need crisis intervention. But yes, we need public safety, but how much? And one of my 3 main careers was working for the Forest Service. And I was what you call an ologist. I was the people who was trying to make timber sales better. And we worked with the timber beasts and the engineers. And a lot of the timber beasts were kids who went to school just like me, caring about the environment. But their education turned them into these people that were just looking to fill quotas of how much board feet they could get out. And they criticized me for trying to protect the watershed factors. I'm saying that because we hear about how traffic stops are some of the most dangerous things that police do. And we want to be sure that we're not adding into the city more of the energy of the frenzy of the people who engage in traffic stops and end up killing people. But if we don't address the decrepit nature of our neighborhoods, and if we don't make it easier for parents to work and to know that their kids are being cared for in a good place, and if we don't make it easier for people to get to work, and all the things that these wonderful kids were talking about, the kinds of youth activities that we need, and the mentoring. The work that I came to Erie to do, it's a national shortage category. And I would love like heck to inspire somebody else to train to do that work. But I think it's a conundrum. I have a lot of respect for Gary Horton, and he wants this batch of police officers to be approved because of the diversity. And I'm not sure what to say about that, but I know 21, with all the facts that people have been saying, and with all the things that we need to do in this city, it's too much. It's too much. We really need to do what's needed first, and that's to take care of the people of the city. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My subject is the police hiring.
Don't forget name and address.
My name is John Schubert, live at 2413 East Avenue. I've lived on the east side over 70 plus years, so I'm quite familiar with it. We used to have, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 225 to 230 some police officers. And back approximately 50 years ago, we really didn't have as much crime and drugs and what have you. Today, it's completely different. The problems that the police have today in this city is terrible. It's drugs, crime in general, people park anywhere, motorbikes are running all over this city, no plates on them. You got radios blasting and driving on the highway, again living on East Avenue. Sometimes I think it's Interstate 90. But you want to know why people are moving out of the city. This is one of the reasons on there. Years ago, and this is 10 plus years ago, one of the bankers had told me, when you go to buy a house under 28th Street, now this is years ago, under 28th Street, we really look hard whether it's a good area to give a loan for. Now this is 10 plus years later. Like I said, when I was growing up, we had respect in that for police. Today, a lot of the kids, unfortunately, they don't respect police the way they should. But the other subject on there, my theory is the hiring of the police, we definitely need much more. These guys are going out giving their lives every day. They don't know if they're coming home because you got a lot of people that are really not in a situation where you don't know what they're going to do when they're going in to a house or someplace of that nature. The other quick subject that I had was the code enforcement around this city. I would like any of you, including the mayor, to take a ride with me or somebody else and just go back and forth across the city, just looking at the houses and have someone recording. It's terrible. It's not what it was 50, 60 years ago. Like I said, I've lived on the east side for over 70 plus years, and this city is going down. You have a lot of landlords that are involved. I was a landlord myself. You could have come into one of my properties anytime. But a lot of them, all they're interested now is get their money, and they don't care who's in there. And that's the sad part. But like I said, definitely we do need more police. We've cut them down to a minimum for many years, and it's quite frankly, it's not safe. It used to be that you had at least two to a car. And the same thing even with the state. And that those guys are out there, they're putting their lives on the line every single day for us. So my suggestion is we definitely need them. Have a good day, folks.
Hi, my name is Patrick Moran. I live at 1017 East 2nd Street. Moved to Erie 4 years ago, lived at that address for the last 3 years. Before that, lived downtown. My wife and I just bought a house in the city, so we are committed to staying and really excited to live here. Yeah, people have said some really wonderful things, and I really liked, I know he's not in the room anymore, but Mr. T's, that he claps for everyone, because everyone is sharing an opinion and something that's true to them. And I really liked that. And I also really liked how he reframed the discussion, because a lot of what people are saying is coming off as, for these police officers or against these police officers. And I think the vote has really been structured by the administration in a way to put you in that uncomfortable position of making it look like you are for or against these police officers. And he really pointed out how that is, that's the surface level decision, but that's not the real discussion. The issue is a lack of investment in other areas of the city. So I really appreciated his reframing, that we think about kind of all the things going on and really make the best decision with this one-time money that the city itself says and has listed on their website. It is to rebuild, restore, and transform permanently the community. They say that. I also found it very interesting, I didn't catch her name, but the woman who pointed out, and I'm not familiar with the specifics, so this is what I pieced together from the hearsay of what everyone was saying. She goes, why is everyone showing up now to kind of protest or advocate for these officers not being approved when it's finally a diverse group, as opposed to in the past when I gather from what she said, maybe the group hasn't been as diverse and no one has been opposed. I find that also very telling from the administration that when it comes to this one-time ARP money and these officers who are not part of the budget and will, their funding will run out, that now it is a very diverse group. That is just a very interesting detail. Again, that's what I've pieced together from what other people have said. You obviously know more than I do. People have spoken on a lot of topics. The one that I wanted to speak to that hasn't really been brought up is the population that's homeless. I currently work as a librarian. I work with people who are homeless every single day. I know a lot of their names. I talk to them, interact with them. I'm glad to do so. That's part of what I enjoy about my work. Feels important building those relationships, and also in the library offering a space where they are allowed to be during the day and they are not kicked out. They have shelter, they have facilities, they can use the bathroom. Pretty much the only thing we don't have for them is food, and I wish we had that. And under these officers, and under kind of the justification for them, was that these officers will help address homelessness. And that is really the bullet point that kind of jumped out to me, because I don't think it's controversial at all to say that more police cannot solve homelessness. I find it troubling that the administration would think that and try to overburden the police department with a problem that they cannot solve. More police officers do not solve homelessness. housing solves homelessness as a start, social services to support them, things like that get them off the street, and in turn also promote public safety. I also found it interesting in the city's ARP plan that there's the housing section. There's $2.27 million that is listed as building 100 housing units. I wonder, why some of this money couldn't go towards also building housing units for the homelessness, if that's the real problem that you want to address. So I guess I'm kind of upset at how the city has framed this decision, that the way that they're doing it, and really that the strategy and decision is wrong in thinking and assigning the police to solve the problem of homelessness when that is a problem they cannot solve. There are lots of other things this money could go towards that could help address those problems better, such as some of the things I've listed. So I'm asking you to vote no and essentially tell the city to come up with more thoughtful, intentional, and appropriate measures to address the problems that they claim these officers are addressing. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Amy Eisert. I live at 124 Harrison Drive in Edinburgh, PA. But I'm here tonight because I was born in Erie, and Erie is where my work is, where my home is, where my daughter is, where my roots are. First thing I wanted to say is tonight I'm sitting back there, and I'm just so impressed by the number of kids, the number of youth that showed up tonight. Really gives me hope during a time where we have so much dissension. So I think that that's absolutely fantastic. Those of you who aren't aware of the work that I've been involved in within the community, I've been involved in prevention for 25 years. It's my life's work. So kids and families are my passion. That's what anchors me to the work that I do. I'm involved in a lot of local initiatives, but I'm also involved in a number of state initiatives, trying to strategize ways to work better for youth, to improve systems, to evaluate programs. One of the things that I want to say here tonight is that oftentimes prevention is overlooked by decision makers. Okay, we often rush to the feel-good strategies that don't work. Okay, and oftentimes the strategies that do work take an intentional investment, a long time investment, and sometimes they're not real popular. Okay, they oftentimes don't get to the root causes of the problems. Part of the things that I've been involved in is research that shows us what are our root problems. And I'll tell you, family management issues. There's a lack of discipline and limit setting within families. Okay? We have community disorganization and families that are no longer attached to neighborhoods. Okay? When I walked down the block when I was growing up, every parent on that block was my parent. We don't have that anymore. Parental attitudes that condone and sometimes even encourage the bad behavior. Okay? And religiosity, while some people don't see this, it's a social science term, but it's basically a youth lacking a sense of purpose in their lives and a lack of connection to other caring adults. It's lacking. Okay? People often, and many people tonight, jump to the conclusion of youth programming. Regardless of what decision you make, I would encourage you, youth programming alone is not the issue, folks. You've got to think about youth in the community in which they reside and also their families. If you're just focusing on the youth, you're missing the boat in terms of where intentional change needs to happen. Okay, there's significant stigma around reaching out for help. We got to focus on that. And we do have a lot of programs for kids within our community. One of the biggest issues that we run into is that those families and kids that need them the most don't know about them, or they don't trust them, or they don't know how to access them. Which is why I am here tonight to support the additional officers, not because of the numbers, but because of the intention of the work that they are intended to do within this community. The concept of the crisis car and juvenile unit is critical. It is prevention. And folks, we got to stop thinking about prevention being one silo, enforcement being in another silo, and reentry even being in another silo. We've got to work on them together, communicate together across all of those issues in order to make sustainable change for our kids and our families and our community. Systems change is prevention, and it requires significant front-loaded investment that is an intentional way of doing business differently. It's my understanding that that is what is being proposed with the additional EPD officers, equipment, and training. Doing business differently, better. I know what the numbers say. I'm a researcher by trade, and I know what the numbers also don't say. Okay, and I'm not just speaking to you tonight as a prevention specialist and researcher. I know all too well what those numbers represent because my own cousin was a homicide victim in the city in 2020. Okay, and she was a domestic violence homicide victim. Okay, and her, just like a lot of people who are involved in domestic violence, they don't seek resources. Oftentimes, over 90% of individuals who are killed through a domestic violence homicide victim never connected with any resources. Okay, but between 40 and 60% had law enforcement interaction prior to their homicides. That's opportunity. That is what this investment represents. Okay, it's an opportunity for officers to connect. So I thank you for your time.
Good evening. I'm Daryl Craig, 2408 Liberty, better known as Brother D. I'm also a pastor of the House of Prayer Missionary Baptist Church, 155 East 21st Street. And I stand here this evening torn, really torn. I heard some great things, and I'm very, very encouraged, as Amy said, by the turnout of young people here today. So whether I'm able to offer up anything that will help tonight, I offer this. I hope there was as much listening as there was talking in here tonight, and especially to the young voices. I supported the hiring of these officers before we even got to this point. I think it was introduced here in these chambers. There weren't that many people here that night. I think some of y'all remember that. And since then, I've made it my business, because the call used to be not enough African American police officers. Remember that? That was the issue. There's a young man that's a part of this group that's coming in tonight. I didn't even know it. But he's a young man that I told I would fight for him to get that job as a police officer. And to see him as a part of this group really encouraged me. But I'm of the mind, why now? I get the framing and all that, but where were all the voices back then? I've heard a lot of voices tonight, both for the police and both against, but never seem to be where they need to be or should be at the time they need to be. I'm at ground zero. I live in ground zero. And every day I have to make choices repeatedly. Which street should I turn down while I got my children in the car? While I got my wife sitting next to me? Which one of these routes is going to be the one where the bullets are flying? I'm here for the 7-year-old that we conveniently forgot when the next thing happened. I'm here for the children that were terrified when the young man got shot at school. I'm here for the 80-something-year-old lady that sleeps in a bathtub because her house been hit with stray bullets. And where are all the voices then? I got a news flash, Erie. That wasn't the first baby to get shot in Erie. I'm invited by 2 different groups to be here tonight. One pro-police, one anti-police. And I stopped and thought about it. Why did they invite me? Could it be they both agree that I might have something to offer? Or could it be that somebody thinks I'm easily manipulated and could play a patsy for them? These are thoughts that went through my head. I've been robbed at gunpoint by police at the age of 13. Been beaten 3 or 4 times by policemen. Had my face bloodied. Had my wife have to lay face down in 3 feet of snow by a police officer. As a black man in America in this season, to be pro-police is to invite a lot of pain into your life. But here in the city of Erie, something happened that convinced me this is absolutely the right thing to do. There's bad police everywhere. But we got some good officers that are really trying. And I am convinced 100% when I walk into the school, the children let me know. When the Pell program come in there, you think Santa Claus came in. Every color kid run to embrace them officers. Some of these officers have been more pro not lock the kid up than you would ever expect. Proactively trying to help kids. I went to trial with the 4 young men last week, Mo. Those 4 young men weren't on trial by themselves. Erie, PA, you was on trial too. Where the applause at? Where the applause at? See, because we get convenient with our messaging and with our protests and with our support. But I live at ground zero, and it happens every day in real time. And I know one deterrent to crime is a strong presence of law enforcement. That's guaranteed. That's guaranteed. But all these voices, all these opinions, all this struggle, why do the kids disagree with each other and fight like they do? Because we can't get along and we can't agree on nothing, not even the preservation of life. I know I'm preaching tonight, tearing somebody up in here. See, because when I leave out of here, I'm going back now, it's nighttime. It's dark, and I got to ride through that to hopefully get home without a bullet in my head. And you want to tamper with our safety barriers? Now? I've seen the report, crime among juveniles is really not up in Pennsylvania. Depends on where you're taking the measure at. I'll guarantee you the lady who live around the corner from me, whose house been shot up 5 times, you can't convince her crime ain't up. And guess what? When those bullets fly down that street and they don't hit her, and they don't hit the intended target, they land somewhere. And almost every night, it's shots fired in this city. I spent 2.5 hours on the Upper West Side yesterday talking to some of the young men doing some of this stuff. And they wanted me to understand that there need to be more police because this is destined to be one of the bloodiest summers we've seen.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Deontay Quilley. I live at 1158 East 29th Street. When I came here, I didn't have any intention on speaking. I actually was invited from some people, but then from hearing different opinions and different aspects, like it's very interesting to me, especially to follow up after Brother D to hear some of the things he said as far as like where have all the voices been when other people, other things that have been going on, and I'm not sure if everybody's concern is as far as with hiring 9 officers, like is all of the money going to go there as far as like we're going to have to pay more taxes later on. But then even when we talk about advocating for the youth, as I stood there with Mr. Lennox and I look at some of the officers, like they look pretty damn young to me, you know what I mean? So then even when, you know what I mean, when we look at it like that and to hear somebody went through the PALS program, like how would we not be supporting our youth or encouraging our youth if like hiring them would, assist with that? And then even on top of like the role models that they could potentially be, and then for some of the youth to stand here, like, and I've listened to some of them, and I heard a lot of great things. Like the one young lady almost had me in tears. But you can be them. You know what I mean? If we look at like the moral code that they're supposed to stand up to, and when we think of actually what makes us police officers, like there's plenty of people up here saying hire them. There's plenty of people saying don't hire them. But I guarantee you, if some stuff were to go down in this building right now, we would know that at least 15 people behind us would have our back to at least do something. We know that they will at least have the courage to do something. So I'm not saying for or nor, and then I understand it's a job. They probably have families to support, so why not give somebody an opportunity to make a living for themselves, for their family, especially if this is the best police in Erie, but then also to support the youth and advocate for the youth and pour more into that as well. It's the village mentality, and it's going to take a lot more than us coming down here and coming to these meetings and having these conversations. And then there are even some people who are very articulate and very educated who can go into some of these neighborhoods that they advocate for, because it's easy to come here and stand in front of a microphone and say, get the money to them, the kids on the Lower East Side are suffering. But some of the people that come down here and speak, they don't come into those neighborhoods. They don't come and talk to some of those parents because, like, honestly, us as parents, like, I have a lot of children, and I don't look at the police to protect my family. I'm going to protect mine. I exercise my rights, and I protect my family, and I'm not going to have to say, hey, we need help, the boogeyman's knocking at the door. No, come clean the boogeyman up. So I'm not looking at the police to literally, like, protect my family. But if the problem is hiring them because they're not equipped, then let's prepare them for what they're ready for. You know what I mean? And let's hold them to a certain standard to where, okay, we're checking with them quarterly to make sure that we're not just protecting, but we're also serving the community. And we're offering education and different services and make the police present there. And then literally, like, hold these parents accountable, because there are parents who are being raised by their children and they don't know any better. So even if we pour into that aspect of life or into that aspect of the city, like, think about the impact that could have. And it doesn't take money to do that. Again, there are people who can come here, like behind me, who could probably come grab this microphone and speak in circles around people who look like me, who will be intimidated to have conversations with them. But if they were at least coming to those neighborhoods and try, we can see it's possible. This is how you come and you have an argument. And this is how you come and you express your concerns without fighting, without shooting, without killing. Because everybody who came up here we're all on the same page. Everybody did not agree. But there was no violence. There was no, let's take it outside. There was no guns even pulled. So even on the aspect of having a conversation and learn to represent yourself and articulate your words, like, I don't see that as something that's being done, like, as far as people setting up shop in the community centers or coming to the neighborhood parks that we talk about that are so open, and then even talking about the presence, because people are scared of large numbers of people. It's not just necessarily police. So if we can come down here and grab these microphones and say, hey, I'm for this or I'm against this, we can go in those neighborhoods and we can talk to some of our ignorant parents or uneducated people, and literally adults teach other adults to raise the kids, and then even say something, because we say, okay, I'm seeing drug deals going on in my neighborhood. We expect police to put their life on the line for us to do something for us that we're not even willing to do for myself. If I see it in my neighborhood, yo, that can't happen here, I'm going to say something. I don't have a badge. I don't have a gun. I'm not registered here as far as, I'm not a cop, but I can say something and I can do something. And we're up here saying yay or nay for people who are willing to put their lives on the line for our well-being. But how many of us are really willing to put our own lives on the line for our well-beings in our neighborhoods around us? So why would we not want to hire 9 people who are willing to put their lives on the line for us if we're not willing to do it ourselves? But then we also need to support them, and we need to support the other people as well. Like, I can speak of police officers who have played a major, I was talking to Mr. Lennox. He coached a Saving Our game I played in. Like, Coach Dahlstrom was part of that too. Like, I remember Officer Fries pulled me over one time a while ago, and, like, he didn't give me a ticket. We had a little conversation. I felt good about it. Every time I see Jim Spago, I stop him like, yo, you changed my life. Like, I was into some mess. He stopped me in the school. We had a conversation. Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right. Good evening, Tom Lennox, 626 State Street. I don't know. I hate following Brother D. That's a tough act to follow. I had a lot to say as I was sitting back here listening to everybody. To be quite honest with you, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, and I'm disappointed. And I'll tell you why. You know, we preach to our youth every day. And when I say we preach to our youth every day, the power of working together, regardless of what our differences are, regardless if you hate the police, okay? We work together to hear Dr. Gary Horton for years come up here and actually say and speak highly of what our officers and our whole department are doing. That took years to gain his level of trust. Years. Darryl Craig, took years for him to buy in, for him to trust the police. It took us years to trust him. And there's others in this room. And what's disappointing is that there are some in here that actually know the truth. That know the truth, that there's more that police officers do than arrest individuals in our community. And that's hard for me to hear, that our role is a pipeline to prison, especially our youth in our community. Not true. Name me a profession to where you have to wear so many different hats and to be able to evolve and be an expert at everything. There isn't one. I know. I've worked those jobs. And I'm proud that finally we have gotten the community to buy in, and it took time. It took years. 10, 15 years ago, well, almost 20 now, one of the primary complaints of this city for the citizens was that I was the only African-American officer on this job, and it's a shame that the city don't have more officers that look like them. Here, we're presented with an opportunity, okay? Not because they're diverse. That's not the first box that I look for when I'm out there recruiting, that they're the right people. And we're just lucky enough that we have enough, the right people with these hires. They're going to continue with the mission. The DIS administration I can speak to continue to move the needle in this community. We have to stop being short-sighted. I'm out of here in 6, 7, 8 years maybe, you know. We got to start thinking 10 to 15 years down the road. We got to put everything aside and make the right decision. Put our own agendas aside and for once recognize that we're not just law enforcers. Ask the 800 kids in the city if we're law enforcers. I know. Those kids will tell you different. Not just because I run the program. It's not one guy. We got 93 officers, and without the leadership from the top that believes in moving the needle of this city, okay, it's never going to work. I refuse personally because I am tired. I can't look and recruit in our communities and look at them in the eyeballs and say, hey, you're going to be a political pawn. Although the community was asking for this for the last 30 years. I can no longer do my job in good faith when some just look at us as law enforcement or law enforcers. We're counselors. Sometimes we're drug and alcohol experts. I'm not going to say attorney. Yeah, we do enforce the law, but there's more than that, and that breaks my heart that that's the impression that even some of our leaders have of us still, and that's crushing to me because I know who's in the trenches. And Brother Darryl hit it hit the nail right on the head. When the true work happens, I don't see half these people rolling up their sleeves, getting in the trenches like my fellow brothers and sisters that I serve with do on a daily basis. Now look, when these 21 positions came open, the first thing that didn't come to the department's mind is, hey, we just need more guys to go out and put more people in jail. There was a strategy. We looked at our mental health community. We looked at the juvenile crime that was spiking for the last few years. That was the priority. The White House, when they released the ARP money, Erie, Pennsylvania had a unique role that every other department, we're going to spend it on overtime. We're going to spend it on whatever. Erie was one of the only unique departments that had a specific strategic plan to check the 4 boxes in our community that's been a problem for the last 20 years. Juveniles, mental health, diversity, okay? These are all the fights that we've all collectively been fighting together. We want the same things. We do. But I can't in good faith look at those 7 back there and say that you're going to make the difference in the community and change this community because you're the right people. And we're lucky enough that this is the most historical hire in the history of our department, which is embarrassing to say. And we need your support, your support. Take law enforcers out of the equation and please respect and look at the many different hats we wear and wear proudly on a daily basis. Because there's 800 in this program now, but I trust you within 3 to 4 years, there's going to be thousands. Thousands. They're going to be looking at a decision like this. Please tell them, please tell the mental health community, okay, that we don't need more officers to start a mental health crisis unit. Nationally, screaming for police to have more specialized training. So our leaders, outside the box, let's address that because that's a need in our community. Juvenile crime has spiked and been up. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Honorable City Council, Madam President. My name is Michael Outlaw, 432 East 26th Street. You all know my position as community liaison, but tonight I'm speaking from a different capacity. I'm speaking from the vantage point of listening intently to the community. So we do. The cry was, we need more diversity for years. And when they didn't see it, they pointed the finger at this administration saying, you guys are failing again. You guys aren't invested in the process. You guys don't care. But Lennox and I and other officers, we went back to work. We stayed true north. And we did it the right way. Knocked on doors, military bases, universities, community centers, the clergy. We did everything in our power to respond to the community. So now here we have an opportunity to diversify the police department. And I believe in my heart of hearts the council's going to do the right thing and vote in favor on onboarding these officers because it is the right thing to do. Juvenile crimes, uptick. So what do we say? The community cry was, we need more prevention. Okay, so now we have a unit that's going to be preventive in their approach to addressing the juveniles in our community. Mental health, okay, officers are too hands-on. Okay, so now we have a crisis unit that partners with other organizations to address the mental health community. So we are doing everything in our power to respond. And we've responded. There's so many things I would say here tonight that I won't get into. But I will say this. The bodies that are falling in these streets here in Pennsylvania are black and brown boys. That's genocide. That's happening in our community, on our watch. And we have to respond. We can't sit back idly. We have to do the right thing. in closing, we listened to the cry of the community, and we responded. And I hope, I'm optimistic, that you all will do the right thing tonight and vote in favor of onboarding these officers for the Erie Police Department. Thank you very much.
Frank, is there anybody online? Thank you.
Thank everyone. Thanks, guys.
Ordinances for final passage. Council file number 16286, official ordinance number 27/2022, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $161,193 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and provided for the expenditure thereof. 2022 Insurance Fraud Prevention Authority. Sponsored by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Troop. The Council File Ordinance Bill number 16286, and now known as Official File Ordinance 27/2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 27/2022 by yea 7, nay 0. Council File number 16287, Official Ordinance 28/2022, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $144,123 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof. 2022 Auto Theft Prevention Authority. Sponsored by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Troop. The Council File Ordinance 16287, and now known as Official File Ordinance 28/2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 28/2022 by yea 7, nay 0. Council File number 16288, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $2,020 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Funding is from a check from the Knights and Ladies of St. Patrick to be donated to the Caritas Diocese of Lublin, Poland for food and goods for the Ukrainian people. Sponsored by Ms. Allen, seconded by Mr. Keys, that City Council File Ordinance Bill number 16288, and now known as Official File Ordinance 29/2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski? Yes. Ms. Flores? Mr. Keys? Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 29/2022 by yea 7, nay 0. I think I needed a wake up. Council File number 16289, Official Ordinance 30/2022, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $932,470 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, for the following Home M22 projects. Sponsored by Mr. Keys, seconded by Mr. Nelson. The Council File Bill number 16289, and now known as Official File Ordinance 30/2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 30/2022 by yea 7, nay 0. Council File number 16290, Official Ordinance 31/2022, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $269,951 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, for the following Emergency Solutions Grants ESG 22 projects. Sponsored by Mr. Keys, seconded by Mr. Nelson. The Council filed Ordinance Bill number 16290, and now known as Official File Ordinance 31/2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 31/2020 by yea 7, nay 0. Council File Number 16291, Official Ordinance 32-2022, an ordinance appropriating a sum of $3,111,047 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, and $5,000 program income for a total of $3,116,047 for the following Community Development Block Grant CD 2022 projects. Sponsored by Mr. Keys, seconded by Mr. Nelson. The Council filed Ordinance Bill Number 16291, and now known as Official File Ordinance 32-2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 32-2022 by yea 7, nay 0. Council File Number 16292, Official Ordinance 33-2022, an ordinance appropriating a sum of $120,983 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and provided for the expenditure thereof for the Port Security Grant. Sponsored by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Witherspoon. The Council File Ordinance Bill Number 16292, and now known as Official File Ordinance 33-2022, be finally passed by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council passed Official File Ordinance 33-2022 by yea 7, nay 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council File Number 16293, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $17,364.34 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue received as loan processing fees within the Enterprise Zone Revolving Loan Fund. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Keys. The Council File Ordinance Number 16293, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 16293 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16294, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $24,157.40 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue received as loan processing fees within the Business Development Revolving Loan Fund. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Brzezinski. The Council File Ordinance Number 16294, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 16294 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16295, an ordinance appropriating a sum of $200,000 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Funding is from the Green Mountain Energy Company for the Central Firehouse Solar Project. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Brzezinski. The Council File Ordinance Number 16295, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 16295 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16296, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $10,862.60 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Contribution is from the AIM Recycling Erie from recycled metal to be used for chemical cleanup. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Brzezinski. The Council File Ordinance Number 16296, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 16296 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Madam President, this takes us to new business.
Is anybody going to move to adopt the matter, the separations?
Move to separate 11 through
We
8.
got a second. I second.
I'll second.
Oh, no, you can do it. Okay. Fine.
Any
Move to-
separations?
Move to separate 11 through 18.
And I'm going to separate number 1 because the people have been waiting patiently for a couple of hours to hear us vote yes on that one. Are there any other separations? Lori, can you read all our separations for us?
Oh, yes. We have in new business number 1, we have number 9, number 11, 11A, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Did I miss any?
Madam President, I'd like to indicate my intention to make a motion before the hiring vote is taken.
Well,
Second.
so I don't understand what you're doing, though. Could you explain it?
Do I understand it correctly that how that works to make a motion from the floor? Sorry, I haven't done one yet. Well, he's a parliamentarian. How are we doing on that?
I'll just talk loud. You would have the ability to make a motion from the floor, but anything that's on the agenda would, as I understand it, would go first. If there's something that you want to raise that you're going to make a motion after, or you want to add something to bring up that's related, you could do that. But we would vote on the motions that are listed in paper first.
So I won't be able to share that, but I could share it maybe during the discussion. Is that how that would work?
Right.
Imply it.
I think if your intent is to make a follow-up motion or something like that, that would be appropriate to raise that during discussion. And then after the vote is taken, you can make any motion or anyone could from the floor. Historically, the council refrains from motions from the floor, but there's no legal prohibition to it. So if there's something that has to be done, have at it.
Yeah, I bought a book of Robert Rules of Orders this week just to try to figure out how this would work. So thank you.
So don't we still have to, aren't we going to vote on the balance of the business first, correct?
You would vote, so the first thing to do is vote on everything that has not been separated, and then we would go in order. If there's anything that somebody needs to make, if they intend to do something different later, that would come up during discussion of that item.
Thank you.
Okay, before we move that, I just want to make sure I have these right. I have number 1, number 9, and number 11 through 18. Are there any other separations that I missed?
Which one did you say?
Number 1, number 9. Number 9 is the Conqua Avenue Bridge. And then 11 through 18 are the new hires. Anything I missed?
Hey, will we be able to just group those together? Is that the 11 through 18?
Given the comments, I'm assuming that it is either yes to all or no to all, so I do not, unless
We just move the balance again?
I think you treat those as a group. I think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, so we still have to vote to
Did you say,
move the
Lori?
balance of the agenda.
Moving
Let's
on the
go and
balance
do
of
that.
the agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Balance of the agenda moves 7-0. We have number 1, a resolution sponsored by Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Liz Allen, that the proper city officials are authorized and directed to designate the alleyway between West 18th and West 19th Street and Poplar Street at Lakeshore Industries as Leo Bruno Way. Lakeshore Industries, which makes street signs, historical markers, and commercial castings, was started in 1908.
And
Discussion?
No, my discussion is, the reason I separated this is because I think it's Shirley, is that right? Leo's widow, and I think Barbara, and I don't know if anybody else is out there. I told them it was going to be, and is it Bob? I said it was going to be a long meeting, and they've been very patient. And I wrote up more information about Leo, how he always wanted to work at this place since the time he was a teenager. I was lucky enough to have a tour there. But one of the things I wanted to thank them for is that they went through the proper procedures to have this alley named in honor of Leo, and Lakeshore Markers is taking care of getting the sign made and installation and everything. So thank you for your patience. This has gone on for a few months. I really appreciate that you also sat through this whole meeting. So I don't think anybody's going to vote against this, but we're going to go now to vote on this. So.
Any other discussion? Voting on the resolution. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Motion passes yea 7, nay 0. We have number 9, a resolution sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Keys, that the mayor and the city controller are hereby authorized to execute the agreement between the city of Erie and the county of Erie for the preliminary and final design engineering phases of the Cockle Avenue Bridge replacement over Ravine Drive. The total amount eligible to be reimbursed by the municipality is $585,000, $424.26 from the $5 local use fee funds. Discussion?
I separated that just because it kind of hit me between the eyes. Kind of reminds me of Mario Bagnoni when he said, pick out a bridge from a file and put it together. I'm just hoping that because we can get over $500,000 from liquid fuels, that we're not going to spend $528,000 or whatever on that. I only bring it up because I am liaison to fire, and nobody, I'm talking about two different things. I've been here too long already, I think. But the Cockle thing just kind of threw me for a loop because I didn't think it'd be that expensive. Again, it's not money out of our pocket because it's going to come back from liquid fuels. I just question the amount of it, that's all.
I think is that the bridge that you had the meeting about last year?
Oh, we were down there.
Yeah, you and I were down there in that one. That was so that I'm pretty excited that we found a good resolution for that as a city, because that was,
We're going to need a real bridge back there. 48 people that go across it every day, or used to go across.
Any other discussion? Voting on the resolution, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Resolution passes yea 7, nay 0. Okay, moving to number 11 through 18. Sponsored by Ms. Allen, seconded by Mr. Keys, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that the names listed are number 1 on the list, having been nominated by Chief Daniel Spizzarni, is hereby confirming the appointment as a probationary patrolman at the current salary of $50,205.91 and is on probation for 1 year from the date of appointment on June 27th, 2022. Do you want me to read the names now? The first one is Joshua Nelson, Terrence Doughty, Tyshawn Parker, Luigi Yates, Destiny Glass, Rebecca Gross, William Barber, Ryan Oakley, Alex Miller. Discussion?
I am very proud of the direction that the Erie Police Force is going. One of the people that had spoken had brought up the stuff that came from Obama with the 6 pillars. It was the Department of Justice back in 2015, task force on 21st century policing. And we are making some good steps that way. I've spent a lot of time looking at these various programs and what other cities are doing with them, and these are programs that other cities have. Other cities have, you know, as we've built out the PALS program, other cities have it. In fact, I had trouble finding any city that didn't, to be honest. And so that's a good thing that but any city comparable to us in size and scope. And that's successful. The diversity of these hires is impressive. The question I have is, as we move into that more 21st century task force, is that most other cities had made cuts from those Clinton era policies. And as I looked at the different organizational charts of various cities, as I looked at the complement of cities like Reading, that whether they budgeted or whether they haven't fully sworn, I spoke to members of their actual force to see how many officers they actually have on the force today. And in those cases, our ratios are off. They made cuts to make these additions. We're looking at a $9.5 million 5-year number on our budget. The excess of revenue over expenditures by 2026 is $9.5 million. To cover that with taxes is $3 mils. That's a 30% tax increase. The people that are concerned about their roads, 4 miles of road is 5 police salaries. The ratio of things that we're looking at are the problem. I don't have a problem with new police. I'm thrilled with the diversity of it. I mean, applauding Lieutenant now. I'll applaud you on that too, Lennox. My issue is the budget and how we might manage it. So I intend to propose a motion when the proper rules of order come that I've printed off that asks for the city to return to a force of 175 through attrition by January 1st of 2024, regardless of the vote today, so that the city has proper time to adjust its expectations for October and plan a course of action that would be more appropriate, with City Council having the opportunity to address Ordinance 133.07 from 1971, the last time that City Council addressed the complement number of police. In that year, crime was 50% higher and the population was 50% higher. These things need addressed before we can move forward, and I do not believe that the administration has come up with a plan that we've asked other entities to come up with. We've asked, how is this sustainable? We asked, how is this being leveraged? Of every entity we gave money to, except when we kept it for our own force. So this gives the administration some time. It takes, I think it may change the tone today, and it gives us a force that we can financially manage in 2026, is my intent.
Can I speak to the original thing, or do we have to talk about his motion? Or
there wasn't a motion made.
no motion yet, okay.
There's no
I guess
motion, so-
I would like to say I'm stunned that we have a motion here. Well, we have people waiting to find out if they're going to have a job next week, a new job here, to have something like this thrown at us at the last minute. Certainly, we're going to be looking at what happens going forward, but at 10:45 at night, I don't think we should be voting to say, yeah, we're going to do this, and then in 2 years, we're going to go back to this number. But that's really not what I wanted to say. I wrote out a lot of stuff, probably too long. I was also chastised because I brought in a sign that we got last night at the Bay Harbor meeting, and I was told that you don't have signs at City Council. Doesn't matter if you're the City Council president. I was going to use it as a visual aid. So it's up here if anybody wants to see it afterwards, so I'll just have to tell you what it says. In my opinion, this is the start, not the end, of making Erie a safe and welcoming place for all. We can build on this phrase, a safe community begins with me, which is seen on signs throughout our city. We can thank Brother D of the Bluecoats for creating this message. Think about the potential for positive change if we all embrace his straightforward message. A safe community begins with me. Erie residents, workers, tourists, business owners, artists, volunteers, sports fans, concert and theater goers should all feel safe when they're in our city. They should feel safe and protected against the threat of domestic violence in their own homes. They should know there's a safe way to share their worries if they have information that a young family member or an acquaintance has access to a gun that could be used in a crime. They should also feel safe in reaching out to the Erie Police if they want to report a crime or concern about noise, vandalism, or some other type of neighborhood issue. They should also feel secure that if they or a loved one have an encounter with a police officer, that they will be treated with fairness. A safe community begins with me. To help communicate this message, we can use city council meetings to update you on public safety trends, data, and progress. Every month I propose that we allocate up to 15 minutes during the presentation time part of our agenda to tell you what is happening with these safety initiatives in Erie. We're going to start with a report from Erie Police Chief Dan Spizzarni at our next meeting, which will be a morning meeting on Wednesday, July 6th. He's going to update council members and the public about police use of body-worn cameras. I took an awful lot of notes here tonight. I think it was great the way everybody was synthesizing the various messages we heard. There was the young man who talked about the Green Light program in Detroit, so I Googled that, and I see our district attorney is in the back here. The Green Light program in Detroit is about syncing surveillance cameras at gas stations to the police. The district attorney's office is going to be announcing a program to help people get their security cameras registered with the police department. So we will welcome DA Beth Hers to come here sometime and use this forum to let people know about that. We can let people know about mental health programs. I say over and over again, one of our big barriers right now is communication. I was itching here when I heard misinformation being shared at the microphone. People don't understand how the Civil Service Commission works. We probably don't know about all the cool things that are going on with various programs. Mr. T, I just read in the paper that he's going to be involved in the new mural project that's going on throughout the city, where young people are going to be employed to do those murals. We look at our phones, we don't have like a shared basis of what the communication is, and I would really like city council chambers, at least once a month, to be able to be the forum where you can come and find out what's going on with public safety. If you can't be here for the meeting, because I don't know if everybody's going to come back after a meeting that started, how many hours ago? You know, you can watch the meetings on YouTube. You can catch up that way. But that would be my proposal. This is the start, not the end of where we're going with community policing in Erie. I think we have a real opportunity. There were a lot of good ideas that were shared. There was a lot of how can we work together, and communication is really part of that. I walked home with Jasmine. Actually, Jasmine walked me home from the Bay Harbor meeting yesterday, and she talked about, from her personal experience, about the possibility of a gun buyback program. Ideas can be generated. We can make sure that this works out well. So I'm voting in favor of the officers, but with no other conditions put on there.
Madam President, if I may? No, just first of all, I'd like to thank all of you folks for being here, hearing both sides of the story from everybody, although both sides are the same story. I do have a question, though. There's 3 TV stations. There's a day late and a dollar short newspaper, and I didn't see anything about this meeting being inviting people to come to it. Renee, do you know how these people got here? I didn't think you did.
social
know darn
media
well you
ad.
set this up.
There was a newspaper story, too.
Anyway, having that said, I am liaison to the police, and there's nobody that is more pro-police than I am. I take great umbrage to the way we did this. I didn't even know that we had 2 females and 2 African Americans, I think, or folks of color, I'll say. I'm not even sure what they are. I didn't know that until Saturday night or Sunday when I got a call from somebody. Why is it a secret? Why is the 5th floor up here? And that's why everybody, almost everybody up in this dais has questions. Not because we doubt what the chief and Lennox and Nolan and those guys are doing. It's that nobody tells city council about it, and then they come and hit us in the back of the head with 500 people and beautiful comments, and we're all on the same side. That's, there's some kind of resolution percolating over on the other side, but the solicitor won't let him do the resolution until after we vote this. So a lot of it's not making sense to me.
I don't think he said that, right?
I'm not stopping anybody from
So,
the way council operates is that you have pre-written your motion.
right,
And they are presented to council
correct.
on paper. So if you're going to have an additional new motion, it's coming at the end. I don't make those rules. I'm not stopping anything.
No.
In fact, I'm actually saying you can make
Absolutely.
motions from the floor when historically that has been, I think, refrained from happening on council. It's not illegal. It's totally legal, and you can have at it. I'm not stopping
So,
anything.
I'd like to entertain a motion to table.
What?
Table the hiring?
Is there a second?
Madam President, are we still in discussion?
Yes, Mr. Witherspoon. What?
There
What?
would be
Oh,
no
wait a minute.
discussion. I'll second that because we would need to move on, right? I'll second his motion.
So if you're going to second the motion to table, then you
You have
vote
to
on
vote on
the motion to
tabling.
table. It's a non-debatable motion.
Correct. No.
So discussion of any point is mute right now?
The motion to table would put it off to a later date. So if you do not wish to put it off to a later date, you would vote no. If you do wish to push it off, then you would vote yes.
The consequences of putting it off?
Now, my question was, we were discussing, and then the motion jumped in, and I was trying to get the president's attention to speak.
I'm sorry, sir.
That's what I was.
I would have not made the motion till after you had a chance to speak. But now, Robert's rules.
If we'd like to give Mr. Witherspoon the opportunity to speak, we can withdraw the motion to table. You can make it after Mr. Witherspoon speaks, if you would like to do that.
I will withdraw the motion to allow Mr. Witherspoon to speak.
Sorry for making you work so hard
We're
today,
going to
parliamentarian.
rewatch this.
No, it makes it, keeps me awake, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Witherspoon,
We're still in discussion.
we are now back in discussion. How about it, Mr. Witherspoon?
Well, thank you very much for the clarification. The police department is undermanned. I think we all know that. I don't believe any of us up here know what they go through every day. It was said earlier that they perform a multitude of duties. We have spent thousands and thousands of dollars preparing for these new recruits. We have ordered all the equipment that they need. We voted 7-0 to do that. Now I'm hearing that we want to hang all that money up in a closet somewhere. And while it's hanging there, crime continues to grow. Nationwide, Erie, Pennsylvania. And we're talking about not supporting police at this stage of the game. It was mentioned early about the number of deaths of young people, shots fired, elderly people hiring in the bathtub. I work with kids all summer. Councilman Troop works with them every day during the school year. He sees it every day. My league begins July 5th. I'll have 200 people at the court every day. If it wasn't for police, about a year and a half ago, who monitors Facebook, and they told me at 5:30 that we're going to have some trouble today because a gang was going to meet at Spoon's Court. If they weren't doing their job, they may have been death at Spoon's Court, and that would have been on me. We also had an angry parent who knows nothing about the game, said, well, I'll be back and I'm going to spray this whole crowd. I took it as a direct threat. I dismissed everyone. They didn't show up, but I was there waiting. And every time somebody give me a threat, I'm going to clear it, because I don't want the death of a child or a young person or adult on my mind and my heart. Our kids are important. They deserve the protection. It was said earlier that police can't stop what they don't know, and that's so true. They react. But now we're sending new police through a multitude of training. Now we have a PAL program that is successful. Now we are really moving into community involvement with police officers. Now police officers are looking at young African American, Hispanic kids in a different light. I can't worry about what the budget looks like 3 years from now when I may lose 7 or 8 more kids. I don't care what the budget looks like. If anyone up here can tell me they're guaranteed to be alive 3 or 4 years from now, let me know. Why now, when crime's on the rise? Police getting shot? Kids getting shot? How about the baby who was in the crib and a stray bullet killed the child? You tell that parent that they don't need more police officers. Why haven't I had any major problems at my court in 32 years? The answer is I have police presence. One of the best days is when SWAT came up. You should have seen the kids run to the SWAT. You should have seen SWAT mingle and talk to the kids and let them on the vehicle. It's community policing. 32 years, nothing major. I'll tell you, my son spent 15 years on the Raleigh Police Department. He retired, went into teaching. He's now a vice principal. 4th day of school, he had to take a gun, an automatic, away from a 4th grader. Where's the parents? A 4th grader with an automatic. So what I'm saying is his police duties exist as a vice principal. So the police department needs the support. We heard from citizens today, pros and cons. And as I listened, I thought about my mother, who bakes a cake the old way. Put the flour in the sifter and shake the sifter, and the fine flour come through, and the lumps stay in there, and she throw it away. That's what I do today, tonight, in making the decision. I take everything everyone has said, let the fine points come through, and the rest I'll throw it away. I am pro-police. They aren't always right. We know that. We know they aren't always right. They react. That's why we got body cameras, because there was a cry from the community. Madam President, thank you very much.
So before, Michael, before you make your motion, though, again, you're going to make your motion to table again?
I am going to make a motion, yes.
But before you do that, can I just ask, don't we have these swearing-in ceremonies set up? Correct? I just want to let people know we have a swearing-in ceremony scheduled for June 27th. Okay. So that's before we meet again. So they've given their notice. They're ready to start. But we're going to possibly say, we aren't even going to tell you yet whether you have a job, because we're going to table this. So I just want to make that clear.
I think my resolution buys you time, Mike.
Pardon me?
I told him I think my resolution buys his time.
I don't know what you mean by that.
So motion to table would be considered. No? I make motion to table.
Is there a second?
This motion fails.
Without a second, the motion would fail. So now you have before you a motion collectively to hire each of the officers.
Can my resolution go before that? And it goes in.
It would go.
Well, I don't think that you can all.
So, help me with this.
Would you have to take a vote on doing it out of order?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. So,
It has to be ready, Chuck.
no, I'm not trying to make things more complicated. Your motion would be to do what?
My motion states the number of police officer complement returns to 175 by January 1st of 2024 through attrition or until City Council has more time to review Ordinance 1-1971, Section 133.07, which is also called classified services. The remaining ARP funds and their allocations would then be reviewed for City Council input. This would functionally give the administration the understanding that the October hires, they should not move forward with it. This would functionally let them know that we should have the number of police that we can afford with the general budget rather than this extra money. And it would give them 4 years to make a plan that is more feasible and allow them to make a vote on these officers without that consequence.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? It's 2022, and you said 2024, so that's 2 years, not 4 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
I also want to point out something that I think we need to know that that the person who's making this motion has political ambitions to run for mayor. No,
depends how this goes.
I don't care.
Get her
because
some
the-
mental health. What would you say about Cole?
Timing is important. If he's running a campaign, he can deal with that question then, not tonight at 10 after 11.
If I run for something, I'm not trying to fix the $9.5 million deficit we're facing right now. All right, that's some bullshit, Liz.
You know what? I covered meetings. I know what people have said here as a reporter. I know what political stuff was thrown around, so don't tell me I can't say something or reveal what the actual motivations are.
All right. So you're going to have to vote. I don't see any other way to do it. I think he's made it clear that that's his intended motion. We're under 175 now, so the motion without the additional hiring, I just would suggest doesn't make sense. So if you're going to vote it down, the motion would not have any purpose. Right. If you're going to vote to hire, then the motion could be made at that point.
So people can vote and know they have an out after this. That's
right. No, that's
okay.
why I think anytime, whatever anybody says, I just think the order is that you have these pre-written. You have votes to hire 9 police officers. There was a motion to table that failed, so you're going to now vote yes if you wish to hire the officers, no if you wish not to, and then if appropriate, Mr. Nelson can make his motion after that vote.
Thank you.
Okay, and the resolution states the appointment date is June 27th, 2022, just to remind you. Okay, so we're voting on the resolutions?
Correct. So put in English, we're voting to hire the 9 officers. It's yes if you wish to, it's no if you wish
All
not.
together.
Correct.
Mr. Brzezinski? Ms. Flores?
No.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
I'll give it a no.
No?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Troop? Mr. Witherspoon? Ms. Allen? So the motion passes yeas 5, nays 2 to hire.
Hopefully we don't have it.
Is there a motion on the floor?
So now I make my motion? Official, okay. I'd like to make a motion
Second that.
The motion I would like to make is that the number of police officers complement returns to 171 by January 1st of 2024 through attrition, or until City Council has more time to review Ordinance 1-1971, Section 133.07, which is also called classified service. The remaining ARP funds and their allocation would then be reviewed for council for input. Shall I pass that out to the, I printed off 10 copies.
You can pass it out to me.
Yeah, if you printed it, if you typed it and printed it, yes.
So this is a motion by Mr. Nelson, seconded by
President.
Ms. Flores.
Oh.
Thank you.
Just, whatever number you're talking about. Expect me to vote on it? Yeah, Mayor. Can't read that.
So this is my second motion from the floor.
Here's my prop, because these
No,
props were
no.
already ready.
This is that thing you were talking about. Now, how do you expect me to vote on something?
Can we call for the question? Any other comments?
Do I think I read it and then we discuss?
Yeah.
Motion from the floor by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Ms. Flores, that the number of police officers complement returns to 175 by January 1st, 2024, through attrition or until City Council has more time to review Ordinance Number 1-1971, Section 133.07, which is also called classified service. The remaining ARP funds and their allocation will also be reviewed for City Council input.
Madam
Discussion?
President,
Yes, no.
being that I just received this, I surely can't support it because I don't know what Article 11111 is. I mean, I have it now, but so that's just my position.
And I think my assumption would be last hired, first fired. So essentially, we're telling our new police officers, hey, come and work for us for a little less than 2 years, and if we don't have attrition, bye-bye. I frankly am embarrassed that this is the way we're going about hiring people. Don't say under your breath, say it out loud. That's not what we're saying. Plenty of time to look at the police force. We have plenty of time to do this. It's getting later by the minute, and Mr. Nelson has asked us to make a policy decision, which he obviously was waiting to thrust on us. I know he talks about that ordinance from 1971.
Yeah, I've been talking about that for a while.
You have been talking about it. I want to point out, again, that we approved this spending in December. City Council got a memo on February 18th about this. If you wanted to stop this, you should have started in February, not tonight.
He never talked about scuttling this thing. All he's saying is what everybody else has been saying who isn't having an office on the 5th floor.
And
He's saying,
we call for the vote.
Actually, can I?
No,
Can I
when
make
the
a?
motion-
no.
when the motion's on,
I
a
thought there
motion
was-
is on.
I
We've
thought there
called
was
for the vote.
I thought there was discussion. I want to make sure that
When
it's
we call for-
clear that if we do that, we will not be able to implement this plan to bring back the crisis car and the juvenile unit and the community policing officers, which is the whole strategic intention.
Scranton,
So I wanna make
like
sure-
Reading has those services. You
I
can
understand
administrate that.
But we do not have the ability to take 20 officers off the street.
Other places
With
have.
the situation that we're currently in, with the domestic violence that we're experiencing, the gun violence, the youth crime, the addiction, the mental and behavioral health issues that are occurring, this only works if we can take 20 officers off the street to provide them with the specialized training that they need and operationalize these units. At that point, then we will be able to ramp back down to the current complement if we haven't gotten additional grant funding or other funding options, which we're currently working on. We've already made that very clear. But to say that we have a year and a half and we can't bring the officers on in October, then we can't do everything that we're trying to do. So it's just going to be adding
You'll have to
9
make cuts.
officers.
I expect good, efficient services, and I
What
trust you to be
would
able
you
to do
cut?
those.
I would
Looking
like.
at other departments, SRU stuff, most of them do not have our special response stuff. Nobody
Such
has
as?
such as Bomb Squad.
Bomb Squad, okay, that's a great example.
Scranton's the only
We
city
have
close to
one
us that
of,
has it.
there are 3 Tier 1 bomb squads in the Commonwealth.
And we're the only one.
And we're one of
Some people
them.
are out of order here, Madam President, you want to control
So
this?
if we have a situation with a bomb, you're saying you want to wait for Pittsburgh to get here?
Yes, at the cost it is. Towing's another one. I looked at where the cuts
Towing?
happen in other cities. They made cuts. They moved from this. I mean, this stuff reads like it's a dissertation from some 90s public policy plan. We don't need to do both. We can make cuts and transition things.
You can do that when you're mayor.
We have 140 officers filling 200 roles because of the task forces that we are involved in, because they're passionate about the community that they serve and they're trying to make an impact. We don't need to cut our bomb squad and put our citizens at risk or our SWAT team. Reading has other large municipal departments surrounding them that have those units that are much closer than we do. It's not apples to apples.
There are
So
plenty
I'm
of
just
examples
saying,
that we are not that unique.
This whole thing was based on a strategy that we will not be able to implement.
They call for the vote. Do I call?
Call for vote?
Call for vote.
I just didn't want to cut off any council member speaking. No, if you call for the vote, have at it, vote.
Mr. Brzezinski. Ms. Flores. Mr. Keys. Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Troop.
No.
Mr. Witherspoon.
No.
Ms. Allen.
No.
So the motion passes 4-3. This takes
Does
us-
anybody have any committee reports?
I'm waiting mine because of time.
If nobody has any committee reports, do we have anything from the solicitor?
No.
Anything from Renee? Are we ready to adjourn?
City Council adjourns at 11:20 PM. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon.